Welcome, man. It is Thursday afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Carlene Bragg, it's here. The conversation on social media, the conversation at home for you, and the conversation here in this newsroom, the conversation here in the studio is about this winter storm that is going to hit our area. Again, we have models, we have different tracks. It's Thursday. So we're about 48 hours away from it hitting. So some things need to be finalized first.
Some preps need to be had.
Yeah. And people are, I saw the video. A lot of folks are taking it serious. They're going to the grocery store. We don't want you to freak out.
Did you go to the grocery store?
I've already placed my, I do
Order
pickup.
Gotcha.
So I've already placed that. So I will pick that up tomorrow since
Okay.
I'm working a later shift. Some inside baseball for you guys. And we're family. I can tell
we
you
can
that.
talk about it.
Have you gotten
I
prepared?
did. I went to the Food Lion last night.
Okay. Was it packed?
It was crowded when I got there,
Yeah.
and then by the time I was leaving, even like the cashier girl, she was like, everybody just came in. It was just like swarms of people
Yeah.
came in. Like it's around probably 6:30. It started getting packed when I was leaving.
Yeah.
But they still had supply. Like they did have
Yeah.
plenty of supplies.
Yeah, I think these grocery stores are ready.
They're ready.
Yeah, I mean we've had some time and we've known that this winter storm is coming. So hopefully you're prepared at home. Hopefully you're safe. Look, it's a weird sort of weather situation because it's 60
Yes.
degrees today. We're talking about that earlier. But anyway, we got an update from Governor Stein. He's in Raleigh. We heard from Governor Stein. We heard from officials as this winter storm comes barreling down here, not only in our area, but a big chunk of the country. Let's take a listen in to just moments ago, Governor Josh Stein.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are expecting winter weather to return to North Carolina this weekend. It will impact the majority of the state. In some parts of North Carolina, kids might experience their first real snow. And I can remember when my kids would look forward to the snow days. They'd watch TV and wait to see Wake County schools scroll at the bottom of the screen. And then we would go sledding over at Dorothea Dix Park. And I hope that some parents who are watching this can make special memories of their own with their kids. But winter storms are not just fun and games. For much of the state, folks will see ice instead of snow. And whether you find yourself facing ice or snow, we've all got to be prepared for whatever impacts may come. Yesterday, I declared a state of emergency across North Carolina to get ready for the storm. We've activated the State Emergency Response Team, which is a cross-agency group that includes the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, the North Carolina National Guard, the State Highway Patrol, and our state's utilities. Soon you're going to hear from North Carolina Emergency Management Director Will Ray about the winter storm and our emergency response operations, and then from Secretary Daniel Johnson about NCDOT's work to keep our roads as safe as possible. As Director Ray will outline, this winter storm will likely impact the majority of the state. At this time, our greatest concerns are potential power outages and road safety over the coming days. Ice accumulation may lead to power outages, and we recommend everyone keep their devices charged, have a flashlight and battery-operated radio on hand, and think about what you may need to stay warm and fed if you lose power. Precipitation and freezing temperatures may also make a mess of our roads, even with the 300,000 gallons of brine that NCDOT has already put down. Thawing and refreezing leads to black ice, so everyone needs to be careful on the roads for not only during the storm, but for a few days after the storm hits. Please avoid driving unless it is necessary to travel. This will keep you safe and the roads clear for first responders and anyone else who must be on the road. Some communities may open warming stations for those who need a safe refuge from the cold temperatures. You can find information on resources in your community by visiting your local government and emergency management agency's website and social media accounts. This morning, in addition to Director Ray and Secretary of Transportation Johnson, I'm also joined by Secretary of Public Safety Jeff Smythe, Major General Todd Hunt of the North Carolina National Guard, and the Commander of the State Highway Patrol, Colonel Freddie Johnson. Jackie Mativier and Mary Lee Bahar are our Spanish language interpreters, and our American Sign Language interpreters are Stephen Holland and Abby Quick. As we stand here now, emergency management officials, Department of Transportation crews, State Highway Patrol troopers, and the National Guard are hard at work preparing for the winter weather, brining the roads, pre-positioning resources, clearing abandoned cars from the shoulders of our highways, and working closely with local governments across the state to coordinate assistance quickly. High clearance vehicles are ready to support stranded drivers. The Forest Service is ready to remove downed trees from roads. Aviation assets, planes, helicopters are ready if needed. During winter weather, just like in any severe weather situation in our state, our number one priority is to keep people safe. So we recommend that you take the following actions to navigate this winter weather event. First of all, stay informed. Make sure you're following your local media, the National Weather Service, and your local emergency management agency. Second, get prepared. Think about what you would need during and after a major storm. Things like enough water, non-perishable food, medication, and supplies for 3 to 5 days for each person and pet in your household. Also, a flashlight, fresh batteries, a way to keep your phone charged, blankets, and winter clothing. Visit readync.gov for more detailed information about how you can best prepare. Next, make a plan. How will you safely heat your home if the power goes out? How will you cook safely if the power is out? And what will you eat if cooking is not an option? Where will you go if you cannot stay at home? Finally, let me repeat this. Starting Saturday, please do everything you can to stay off the roads. Unless you're a first responder or essential personnel, please don't drive unless you have to drive. Fortunately, we have 2 days to make sure that we have everything we need to ride out this storm. Don't wait until it's too late. And if you're getting ready, don't forget to check on your loved ones and neighbors and anyone who might be especially vulnerable, including the elderly. None of us can control what this storm will ultimately look like, but each of us can get prepared. Be ready to stay home for a few days, potentially without power, and know that we are taking this storm seriously and we will do everything we can to keep you safe. Thank you. I'll now invite forward and turn it over to Director Ray.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, everyone. I want to begin this morning with the forecast as we have it currently, and then provide an overview of our operational posture. As the Governor said, while there are still 2 days before this winter storm impacts North Carolina, confidence in the forecast continues to increase that this will be a significant event covering most of the state. Winter storm watches have been issued for most of the state, with impacts from this storm expected to last into early next week. The most impactful precipitation remains over the weekend, where a wintry mix is forecast across much of the state. Light precipitation is forecast to begin early on Saturday, spreading from west to east. The primary precipitation types include some snow, sleet, and accumulating freezing rain, with the best chances of any accumulating snow being in our northern counties. Our partners at the Weather Prediction Center have placed a probability of 60 to 90% for much of the state to experience moderate impacts. These impacts include hazardous driving conditions, especially on bridges and overpasses, damage to tree limbs from ice accumulation, and power outages that have the potential to be long-lasting. Portions of the state may experience major impacts, especially in the southwestern North Carolina, which can include considerable disruptions to daily life, with dangerous and often impassable driving conditions, as well as widespread power outages and damage to trees. As a reminder, ice accumulations of around a ½ inch of ice or more can cause an increase in downed trees or impact power lines and lead to an increase in power outages, as well as to hazardous travel conditions. Bitterly cold temperatures will move into much of the state Saturday and will last into Tuesday at this time. There are several important reminders if you lose power during this storm. Please ensure that generators are operated outside and away from open windows or doors to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. Never burn charcoal indoors or use a gas grill indoors. Properly vent kerosene heaters and make sure that all heaters have space around them to reduce fire risk. Use battery-powered sources of light instead of candles to, again, reduce fire risk. And make sure that you have plenty of warm blankets and clothing available. Based on the current forecast, hazardous travel conditions are expected Saturday and Sunday and may remain for several days due to the lingering low temperatures. As the Governor stressed, we would ask all North Carolinians to finalize preparations by Friday night and plan to stay off the roads this weekend. Unnecessary travel not only puts you at risk, but also the public safety personnel, power crews, and DOT workers who are working to respond to emergencies, to restore power, and to clear roadways quickly. If you must drive in winter conditions, our partners with the State Highway Patrol advise reducing speed significantly, increasing the following distance between you and other vehicles, and clearing all snow and ice from your vehicle before traveling. Given the forecast, let's make their work easier by staying off the roads unless absolutely necessary. The State Emergency Response Team has been activated here at the State Emergency Operations Center, as well as at our regional coordination centers in Kinston, Burlington, and Hickory. Key partners such as the Department of Transportation, the North Carolina National Guard, and the State Highway Patrol, as well as the Department of Health and Human Services, are working to address any resources or support that is requested by our local communities. We've also activated our warehouses in Burlington and in Baden and Stanley County. As of this morning, the State Emergency Response Team has provided water, meals, medical supplies, and heating equipment to local communities or partners who have requested that support. We're mobilizing elements of the North Carolina National Guard over the course of today and tomorrow to be able to assist with stranded motorists, assisting first responders with their emergency response, roadway clearance, and commodity distribution. Additionally, we are placing aviation assets from the North Carolina National Guard and the State Highway Patrol on standby for any rescue or movement of critical resources and personnel into impacted communities as this storm moves out of the state later this weekend and as conditions allow. Hotspot crews are being deployed along our major roadways, primarily in western North Carolina, along I-40 in Clyde, I-40 at Old Fort in McDowell County, on the Saluda Grade in Polk County, along I-77 and US 321 at Turner Grade in Surry County. As a reminder, these are combination teams of the NCDOT and North Carolina National Guard to ensure safe movement and address stranded vehicles from along our major roadways. These teams will be moved around those.
All right, so that's press conference just moments ago. Governor Josh Stein, also officials within emergency management, giving us updates on this winter storm that's headed our way. Speaking of that winter storm, we are going to get a check on our forecast with meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. But first, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. And as promised, first, I'm Nick Sturtevant. Carlene Bragg is here as well. Brittany Van Voorhees, meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees, is also here in studio. And as promised, as I was saying, we're going to get a check of that forecast. A lot of eyes on this winter storm that's headed our way, Brittany.
A lot of eyes indeed, Nick, and honestly for a very good reason. I know that our team has been saying this for a few days now, but I think it cannot be gone without saying, again, if you have not prepared, now is the time to do so. Whether that is going to the store to get, whatever you perceive to be necessary, whether it's water. Normally when you have a big storm, whether it's a hurricane or an ice storm, it's about 3 days worth of food and water for every single person or pet in your family. And snacks, something that's not perishable, like not, hashtag not an ad, but Chef Boyardee, like things like that,
Tuna.
that
Butter.
you don't have to, heat something up in the microwave or whatever. This might be an obvious thing to people who live in the Carolinas, and maybe I'm the silly one, but oftentimes having my parents live in Florida, working in Florida for a while, we had a lot of people who died because of running generators in their home. So just a reminder that you can't do that. Generators cannot be run inside, whether that's a garage or somewhere else. So you have to have a plan if you have a generator on where to do it outdoors. Not turning on your oven in your home because you're trying to stay warm. It's
That's a big
extremely
one.
dangerous.
Yeah.
And I understand that in some situations people feel helpless, but you can't put your family, yourself at risk of natural gas, carbon monoxide poisoning for that reason. So I think those are a few things. Again, now's the time to prepare. Saturday, I'm throwing it out there, 4 p.m.
Okay.
I think people should
I
be
think
at
that's the
home.
biggest question I've gotten. Okay. 4
Yeah.
p.m. Okay.
We will start to see freezing rain start right around 4, and it likely won't get travel dangerous wise until closer to 8. But I think 4 is safe because I think about families who maybe have things to do on Saturday or they're rushing out and they're trying to get prepared. I don't want a mom, I think of my sister, of course, who has 2 young kids. I don't want a mom to be stressed out, because it's 4:30 and she realizes she forgot something, because you still have that window. But I think if you prepare for 4 p.m., even if you need like that wiggle room, it's still going to be there. So I
Okay.
think 4 is a safe bet. I would say I would be shocked if your job does not offer you to work from home on Monday or close altogether. I don't think it will be safe to be out on the roadways on Monday. So if your job is not one that is flexible like that, it might be now, today or tomorrow is a good time to talk to your boss and let them know. I think there's a pretty good chance that schools will be closed or remote learning days on Monday. And even though the impacts themselves will be filtering out throughout the day on Monday, we're still going to see bitterly cold temperatures through Tuesday morning. So I think that's another thing that we really want to hone in on, is that this will not be over once the freezing rain and the sleet and the snow stops on Sunday. Like, this is going to be most of the day Monday, and then Tuesday morning we have the potential that we'll see lows in a few spots in the single digits.
Ooh.
Not just teens like we've seen, but
Yeah.
single digits, which also means you're not going to get a lot of sunshine and melting, and it's all going away.
Yeah.
Even if it melts a little bit, that means refreeze potential is likely Tuesday morning. So I don't think it'll really be until Tuesday when we start to get out of the freezing mark and into the 40s that we're really, for lack of a better term, out of the woods.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's something that you, folks got to take it serious. And I'm not telling people, freak out.
No.
But just take it serious. I was encouraged seeing the folks at like the hardware stores, at the grocery stores. I know it can be kind of a pain for people who are there. Just be patient, but that's a good sign. People are watching. People are paying attention. People are aware, because I feel like Monday or Tuesday. Shout out to you guys, Weather Impact team. Monday and Tuesday, like, you guys really like get prepared now. And I was talking to some folks Monday and Tuesday, and they kind of had no clue what was going on.
Another challenge this time of year, similar to when we had like during the summer, maybe
Yeah.
like big bouts of heat, is that because we had that small chance for snow on Sunday, when you have 2 risk of winter weather. So if you go back, for example, and let's say like watch my Sunday night forecast, which is the last time I was here, we on the 7-day forecast had those cold temperatures and that chance for snow, for snow and ice and freezing rain. But if you look very closely, like, I was still focused on what was happening that day, because what will happen sometimes, and I get it, we're all busy, even if you have the forecast on the background background, you have WCNC Plus on, you're watching us on your phone, on the weather, on the app, is that when there's two big systems, sometimes they can get confused with each other. So we wanted to really make sure we got through the chance of snow on Sunday, like before really kind of starting to flip the script into talking about next weekend.
Yeah.
So that's something I think that's important too. This is why, I feel like I say this all the time, but this is why using a trusted source and not using your weather app is so important, because then you all can also rewind back to Sunday night and Monday, and sorry to say it, Apple Weather was showing Charlotte, 10 inches of snow. So I'm getting blown up by all my friends like, oh, you guys were talking about this, but now, and it's just the truth. It's not accurate. Those apps are not looked at by a human, right? They showed raw model data. And also a human's not going through that information showing whether or not it's going to be snow or freezing rain or ice. It doesn't have the ability to do that. Whether it's the new AI models, that they're kind of trying to mix in for just us to have another tool, they cannot distinguish between the two. A model that's specific for ice can forecast ice, but it can't distinguish the difference between ice and sleet and freezing rain and snow and all those things. Not only can it not do that even if it's the day of, it can't do that 7 to 10 days out. So it just is a really important reason why where you get your information is just as good as the level of what the information is.
And it's important for you guys to ring the sound the alarm, right? Because there's some skeptics out there that say, well, it's not going to be that bad. What if it's not that bad? Look, I hope it's not that bad.
100%.
And you guys, the Weather Impact team, hope it's not that bad. But it's the just in case part. It's the just in case.
And I think that this is a really good example, and we don't need to get into semantics of the difference between the two systems, but last weekend when we were talking about a small chance for snow, there was like this much of a chance.
Yeah.
The question wasn't whether or not we were going to see or the question wasn't 100% we're going to see winter weather, what kind? And that was like the big thing that we were honing in on. It was the ingredients did not look to be there to see anything.
Yeah.
Which is why when people were looking at their apps again, they were showing 3 inches of snow 2 weeks ago. And why we kept saying, we don't think the cold air, the moisture, is going to be there at the same time. And that's why our chance was so low that we could basically just see a few flakes for most of the Charlotte area. This was not that. This was a case of we know the ingredients will be there. Where they set up will determine what we see. And that was like what we were trying to get people to understand is last weekend, it was, we don't think this was going to happen because the ingredients aren't there. This weekend, it was, we know the ingredients are there. The question mark is what it's going to be.
Can I brag for a second?
Sure.
We got the best weather team in the business. I'm just saying, they are rarely ever, I don't think they've been wrong since I've been here. I've been here a little over 2 years. We got the best team in the business. So if there's a team that you can rely on, that's going to give you the truth, and it's actually going to get into the weeds of some of this information, because I'm over here kind of learning in real time. Look, we're not meteorologists. Carly and I are not meteorologists, but look, I like hearing some of this stuff. But I say all this to say, we got the best team in the business.
We also got taken to school this morning about sleep.
We got taken to
I
school
heard.
about and we now know officially what sleet is.
Which is
It's small hail.
ice pellets.
Ice
Yeah.
pellets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just
There you
confused
go.
between sleep and hail because I'm like, what is the difference?
Yeah.
It's just small.
Yeah.
A lot of folk
Hail
don't
is
know.
also only made in in severe thunderstorms because it's updrafts that are going high up into the atmosphere and tapping into cold air, and I always describe it to like kids at like a school talk. That's not saying you guys are kids. I just think this is a funny.
Oh, yeah,
No, I just
we
think
could
this
use
is
a refresher.
Yeah, I think this is a funny anecdote but essentially because the little water droplets that eventually turn to ice are getting tossed up. I always say it's like the bingo.
Yeah.
Turns, where
Yeah.
like the balls kind of hit each other. That's essentially what happens. They kind of almost like bounce around like you're juggling, and as they hit, have you ever seen a hailstone?
Yeah.
How it often has
Yes.
spikes on it. It's not normally perfectly round. It's because they're basically bashing into each other all the time.
Oh.
Whereas sleet is essentially snow that has melted and then refrozen before it reaches the ground. I always say sleet is kind of like, think about Zaxby's ice.
Yes.
You know how they're those little
Oh, yeah.
pellets,
Yeah.
and that's when you hear the ding.
Oh.
And the biggest difference between sleet and freezing rain is that they melt, both of them, but sleet has time to refreeze because there's more cold air in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, whereas freezing rain is where, like, if the table was the ground, it's warm all the way to the edge of the table, and then boom, it freezes on contact. So that's why you think like black ice is just that thin layer of ice. It's because it's freezing on contact with the ground and it doesn't have time to refreeze.
As somebody who's covered many winter storms, it is not fun getting pelted by sleet.
It's not.
It's
But
not.
sleet is not as bad as freezing
No,
rain.
yes,
Or
yeah.
as bad as a mix of the two.
Well, Brittany Van Voorhees, you can catch her during the. Brittany's doing all of the shows, I think. Are you in all the shows? What are you doing? Are you doing traffic?
I am doing traffic
Okay,
in the
okay.
floor,
I
and then-
just made that up.
Yeah.
I don't.
And then
I made it
have
up.
been told by my wonderful chief meteorologist to go home and get some sleep since the next few days are going to be a little crazy.
Well, the next
So,
few days, you're going to get a lot of Brittany. You're going to get a lot of Brad. You're going
Yeah.
to get a lot of Majestic, Becca. Am I missing anybody?
Chris Mulcahy.
Chris Mulcahy. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Chris, you're my
Yeah.
guy. I'm sorry.
The tentative plan, especially if you have your favorite meteorologist, is that Chris and Becca will be tag teaming in the mornings, starting Sunday morning. Brad and I will be tag teaming 6 p.m. starting Saturday, basically, for the overnights. And then Majestic will be out live in Storm Tracker, keeping an eye on like what the conditions out on the roads are going to be.
Make sure
So.
you tune in and make sure you stay with us. Brittany, thank you for your time as always. Always great chatting with you. Let's go to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so this winter weather, it's coming. And look, we want you guys, we give you the different tracks. We tell you what's going to happen, but we want you to be safe. Safety is a big thing. We were talking about this before the show started, Carlene.
We don't want people to panic, but be on alert.
Yeah, and there are people that, look, like us and like folks who work at the hospitals,
Yeah.
crews, they got to be out here in this stuff.
Right.
And there are people that they choose to be out. They're curious. I understand. Look, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. But if you choose to venture out by choice, just stay safe. And look, this is a great time to bring in Angela Bryan. She is with Novant Health's Trauma and Injury Prevention. She's a coordinator. Angela, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today.
You heard my spiel about people being safe. I feel like I hear it every time some winter weather rolls through about something. And I guess I'll just ask you this. What do you see during this time of year, especially with the winter weather, as far as injuries?
So our leading cause of injury during this time with like inclement weather, is slips and falls. So we really just want people to be careful if they are going outside to wear good shoes with good traction. We want people to use handrails if at all possible, but slips and falls are going to be our leading cause of injury. Also cold related injuries, and then motor vehicle crashes just with the icy roads.
So people are they're going to want to have fun. They're going to listen to us. They're going to say, "Hey, I know Nick, Angela, you're telling us to be safe, but we're curious. We want to go outside. We want to have fun, even though it's going to be icy. We're not going to see a lot of snow. What's some tips for folks if they decide to venture out? I don't know what they would do on the ice, but if they decide to do a play on the ice on the sleet, what would you suggest?
I would suggest wearing layers. You definitely want to cover up and wear layers. You want to wear good shoes or boots that have good traction. You want to wear like waterproof gloves and boots and things like that that are going to keep you dry. If you are going to go sledding, definitely go feet first, not head first. Avoid like sled riding around trees and water and roads because you just never know what's going to happen. So be very careful. If children are going to be venturing out, we always advise wearing helmets if they are going to be sled riding or just walking around, those kinds of things. Helmets can really help prevent a serious injury. So just be smart. Have fun. We want people to have fun, but be smart. Check your surroundings before you do anything and just be mindful because we're also looking out for ourselves, but we got to look out for other people too that are out and about as well.
Yeah, I guess a good rule of thumb, if you have to question if it's a good idea, maybe you shouldn't do it as far as activities outside. On a more serious note, people may lose power. That means you're not going to have heat. How do you keep your home safe? How do you keep yourself safe? I've heard of, over the years, cold exposure, hypothermia, especially with our elderly population. How do you keep yourself safe in that situation and your home safe?
So definitely for hypothermia, children and older adults are more at risk. So we really want to keep an eye on them and look out for the warning signs for hypothermia, shivering, confusion, clumsiness, fatigue, those kinds of things. So just check in on people if you have neighbors that are older adults or more at risk for things like that. And dress in layers. You want to cover your head, your hands, your feet, your ears, those kinds of things, and just keep covered. And then get indoors and stay warm as often as you possibly can. And then if you do have to like heat indoors, just be careful. Like if you have a fireplace going, just monitor that. If you have candles going, don't leave those unattended. Keep heaters away from flammable things, at least 3 feet is advised. Just be careful, just be smart, be careful. We just want everybody to stay safe during this time.
One more question before I get you out of here, Angela. You've been so generous with your time. Thank you. I've seen some stuff where Charlotte is an area where we have a lot of transplants, a lot of people who are from up north, as Southerners would say, from up north, and they're like, hey, I could drive in this stuff. It's no problem. This is nothing to me. This is a different environment. This is different from what you would deal with in a New York or DC, Maryland area. Safety on the roads is important. What do you tell folks if you have heard that?
Yeah. If you don't have to drive, please don't. Just stay off the roads. Kind of anticipate things. If you need to go to the grocery store and get things, do that right now. Go ahead and get things kind of squared away before Saturday or Sunday, whatever the weather's going to bring our way. If you do have to go outside and drive, please slow down. Take your time. Don't brake quickly. Those kinds of things. Just be really smart because, like you guys said earlier, ice is different than snow. So if you have to go out, wait a little later in the day as it warms up versus first thing in the morning. Just be really smart because ice is just tricky to drive on. So we really want folks to be careful.
Angela Bryan, great advice there. please take note, folks, if you're watching. Angela Bryan, Novant Health's Trauma and Injury Prevention Coordinator. Thank you for your time, and stay safe and all this stuff, Angela.
Absolutely. You guys as well. Thank you guys. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. Yeah, some good advice, Carlene. Were you taking notes?
I took notes.
Okay.
I
All right,
listened.
good.
I paid attention.
All right, that's good. I just wanted to make sure. I was taking notes too.
You want me to see me? If you want me to see me outside acting foolish, I am taking the warnings and I am acting responsibly.
Carlene took notes. I took notes. Hopefully you at home took notes. And you can find this full interview shortly. Our awesome digital team will post it on our digital platforms. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So again, we've been talking about it. This winter storm moving through our area over the weekend. So we got a chance to speak with Melissa Nicely with Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control. Basically talk about pets. I mean, we got to take care of our furry friends. As is winter weather, we're expecting a lot of ice, less snow. But I mean, we're talking about dangerously cold temperatures. Carlene, you were here for this interview.
Was.
Yeah.
We actually might have a live feed to go to right now. We
Okay.
might have to hold off. This is NCDOT. Let me.
Okay.
plug that in.
This is what we do here on Live Impact News. Let's pivot for a minute. Let's hear from NCDOT. Let's take a listen in.
On with the road, and it's easier to push off. But when freezing rain comes, it dilutes the brine to start with, but the brine still helps. But other than that, I don't know that there's much difference in what we're going to do. We're just going to work until it's all gone.
My wireless. I don't know if that. disconnected there or not.
Can you tell us what's going on here at this lot today, what you guys are doing out here?
Okay, they're loading the trucks with brine. We're making brine continuously as the tanks get depleted. They're making and pumping back into the tanks. We pump it into the trucks take it out and spread it out on the road. It's like 40 gallons per lane mile that they put out.
And how much does the tanks hold that they're going out and doing brine in each unit?
Those tanks are a little over 1,600 gallons.
Do you got an estimate on how many gallons you think brine you use?
Typically, to do all the bare pavement routes, we use 30 to 35,000 gallons.
Greg, can you kind of explain to us what a bare pavement route is, what that might look like?
The bare pavement routes are the routes that need to stay open. I mean, it's the interstate routes, the primary routes, the U.S., North Carolina routes, and some high volume secondary roads.
Greg, what are you telling your folks for this weekend? Is it all hands on deck, or how would you describe it?
It's going to be all hands on deck. Right now, our plan is to come in Saturday morning at 7 because we're not sure when it's going to start. We'll work 12-hour shifts, and we'll have another crew come in at 7 that night and work till 7 the next morning, and we'll be here until we're done.
How many people do you have working? Like how many crews, how many trucks?
We've got, we will have 19 of our trucks and 5 contractor trucks running. All of the trucks with the brine tanks on them will, when they get done, we'll outfit them with the plows and the spreaders. So we'll have 24 trucks, 3 motor graders. We've got a couple backhoes, you know, whatever it takes to get it off.
Greg, what do you want to tell the other drivers out there, other people beyond the DOT?
If you can't stay home, just take it slow. Driving on snow is a totally different animal than driving on ice. It's just stay home if you can.
What do you say to those who are concerned about their neighborhoods and their actual streets? Do you guys plan on getting, I know those aren't, you know, it's necessarily primary roads.
Right. I think there's a reason that we wait and do those last year. If they can get out of their street and the main road's not open, they still can't get anywhere. We will get to them as soon as we can, and like I said, we'll keep working until everything is clear.
Do you feel confident in the amount of people you have, the trucks you have? Like, I'm from Chicago, so it's a little backstory, but you know, when I moved down here, when people talk about winter weather, they're all like, you know, it's the infrastructure in the Carolinas that we don't quite have compared to the north. Like, you know, what are your feelings on the infrastructure?
Well, I've been in the county 24 years, and we've never lost a road yet. So I think we've got enough people. The weather conditions can definitely determine how easy it is to come up. If it gets to 17 degrees or 6 degrees at night, it's not coming off. We have to have the weather cooperate, and then, of course, using the brine and the salt and sand if we need it to get traction. But yeah, I think we can do it.
Anything else? Pretty good?
That's good. You want to say something? Yeah, that'd be cool. I'll pick some more sound. I need to disconnect and reconnect.
Go back to being a normal view.
I can drop it this way. Can you drop that down through there?
All right, so you're watching that press conference now. We heard from NTDOT official about preps. That is a state trooper, Highway Patrol, also there. He's getting mic'd up, getting ready to give us just a lay of the land as far as how they are preparing. And look, Highway Patrol, they cover all the highways, a lot of the major roads. They're going to be out and about. Let's take a listen in.
Can you say your name and spell it for us?
I'm a Trooper Jake Machia, MACCHIA. I'm the Troop FPIO.
What do you want folks to know about this coming weekend?
So the Highway Patrol, we've been working at this with DOT all week to be prepared. We're urging drivers, like gentleman DOT said, if you don't have to drive, don't be out on the roadways. Our main priority is keep the main roads open, the interstates, U.S. highways, and then of course secondary roads. If you come across where you're stuck or having a vehicle emergency, you can dial 911 of course for emergency, and dial star 47, which is star HP, our comm centers. Our comm centers are manned 24/7. And then of course if you're checking on road conditions, drivenc.gov. Please don't call those comm centers to overwhelm them with road conditions. Drivenc.gov is a great place to check for those road conditions. And of course we have troopers standing by all weekend to be out on the roadways, keeping those main roadways open and safe for motoring public.
What do you want folks to know about the difference between a big snow event and an ice event, which is leaning more towards the ice?
So a big snow event, like DOT has said, it's different compared to driving on ice. Snow, it's a little more manageable, but ice can be a nightmare. So we try to tell people to stay off the ice, slow down, of course, if you have to be on the roadway, go well below the speed limit, get to where you're going safely, and then if it comes to a major ice storm, we really urge people to stay off the roadways to keep us, troopers and first responders, safe on the roadways as well.
I'm not sure if you can speak to if someone is on the road and they're unfortunately in a situation where they might lose control. What should they do in a moment like that?
If they lost control and they're off the side of the roadway, of course, dial star 47 or 911. We'll come assist you and get you safely somewhere. That's what troopers are on the roadway for, to get you off that roadway, to make sure no other collisions happen. But we also want to make sure the main roads are staying open. So we want to move those vehicles off the roadway as quick as we can to keep the U.S. roadways open for the DOT trucks and the brine trucks and the blades on the roadways, keeping those roadways clear. So we need to mainly keep those smaller vehicles off the roadway in order for DOT to do their job successfully. You're good.
I don't know. I mean, just it's kind of all the same. Like you guys, have to be on the road too this weekend. As keep people safe. Just what do you do to like?
To prepare.
Well, yeah. How are you?
I mean, we're going to be on the roadways, of course. We don't want to be on some of these back roads, but of course we are there to patrol the main roadways, secondary roads, any roadways that people are on. And we're going to find a way to get those people that are stranded. We're going to check all vehicles that are stranded to make sure there's no people in those vehicles. We want to get them to a safe location, and we'll find any way possible to get them that safe location.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you all.
Appreciate it.
It would start right now.
Of course. I might melt here in a minute. That is my design.
All right, so we just heard this is in Newton, Catawba County. We heard from NTDOT officials, also a state trooper there. Again, you see those trucks in the background there. They're getting ready, and we're getting you ready for this winter storm for this weekend. So we'll have much more on.
We're talking to South Carolina Highway Patrol
at 2 o'clock.
Right.
In about 40 minutes, you'll hear from South Carolina Highway Patrol, because Carolinas. I know we said a lot of stuff about North Carolina, but South Carolina.
2 states.
2 states. We covered 2 states. And both those states are preparing for what's to come. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Again, folks are getting ready, and not just folks you at home going to the grocery store or hardware store, but these crews in cities, all in towns all across our area. That includes in Union County, in Monroe. They are getting ready for what's to come. Miles Harris is there in Monroe. Miles, what can you tell us?
Yeah, Nick, what's going on, man? So we did get a chance to talk with emergency service crews here in Monroe, which also factor into all of Union County. And they are, I mean, as you can expect, taking the potentials when it comes to the winter weather this weekend pretty serious. And they're really trying to stress that message out to the community as well. So the biggest thing that they also said between now and when the winter storm potentially hits is that preparation, right? So making sure that people have the essentials in their house, whether it's food, whether it's things to stay warm, anything in case, for example, the power goes out. And biggest thing as well is they're also making sure that people are staying safe, but also really trying to avoid the roadways. We're talking about that icy combination that could also be factored into areas here like in Union County, Nick. Now, it's not just the emergency crews that are going to be here around the clock, making sure that they're ready to serve the community as need be. We also checked out Ace Hardware in Waxhaw, which is about 20-30 minutes outside of Monroe out here too. They are already bare thin when it comes to the essentials, right? So we're talking about ice, we're talking about ice melter, we're talking about salt, even propane. They were out of that completely. Now they are hopeful to have more propane here later on this evening as people were coming in and out with their tanks, trying to fill that up, whether it's to fill a generator, whether it's to kind of keep anything warm in the house. But again, really the biggest thing out here when it comes to the preparations from the emergency crews here, Nick, was making sure that people are being prepared, but are also staying safe, staying alert when it comes to any updates as well. But people out here in Union County, specifically even here in Monroe, Nick, they are getting ready to take this winter storm very, very serious.
All right, Miles Harris there live in Union County. Miles, be safe out there, my friend, and thank you for your time. You can catch Miles at 4:30 and 5:30 this evening. Thank you, Miles. All right, so as we were talking about earlier before the NCDOT press conference, pets, you need to protect your furry friend. So we had Melissa Nicely from Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control. And she talked about some way. I mean, Carlene, you even said
things that, like, you know, it's to keep in mind. It's something I didn't think about until she mentioned it. Like, just good reminders for pet owners. I mean, you know, we don't, at least here in Charlotte, we don't come across this too much. Where you're going to have ice melt everywhere. That's something to keep in mind when you're walking your pets. So, you know.
Yeah, it's just some stuff that as a lot of pet owners here in the area,
Yep.
some stuff that you need to know. Let's take you now to the interview, that one-on-one with Jay Monreal.
We are getting you covered and prepared and safe for this weekend's storm. Pet owners need to know how to keep their furry friends and family members safe during the dangerous cold temperatures, and now adding, the ice and the sleet factor as well. That might be keeping people off the roads, hopefully off the roads. But we do have joining us right now Melissa Nicely from Charlotte Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control to talk about more. We have a number of things to talk about, Melissa, because so many pet owners are barely trying to take care of getting to themselves. What is the first thing they need to know when it comes to their furry friends?
Sure. So it's really important with the temperatures. You know, whenever it drops below freezing or right at freezing, we always want to make sure that we're keeping that in mind for our pets, especially if you have pets that are outdoor most of the time. And so first off, my message is for people who have outdoor pets, bring them inside, bring them indoors, even if it's to a garage, a basement, something like that. Getting them in and out of the elements is going to be very crucial during a weather system like we're expecting over the weekend. So bring them inside. If you cannot bring them inside, then what we're going to be looking for as Animal Care and Control in our field services, we are going to be looking for proper and appropriate shelter to keep them out of the elements. That's something that is in our ordinance, and it's something that we look for in the form of dog houses inches, and they have to have a top, a bottom, 3 sides, and then the open side really needs to have just a really small opening so that it doesn't allow a lot of air and elements to get inside. And then the last thing I want to talk about outdoor pets is the bedding that's inside. A lot of people will take like old comforters and old blankets and thinking that they're warm. Well, they're warm when you put them in there, but once that air and wind and rain gets in them, they retain that moisture. So they are not really good items to use. What you want to use is straw, or what we like to refer everyone to use is cedar shavings that you get for pet bedding. And you can get those at any of your big box like home improvement stores, so or Tractor Supply, that sort of thing. And you really want to make sure that you get a lot of it in there, and that's going to actually keep them warm. And if they get wet, they dry out really quickly. So those are some important things. And then the water. If we're below freezing, the water bowls are going to freeze over. So you're going to need to make sure that you're providing them fresh water and knocking that ice out. But again, I just want to reiterate that, like, with a storm this bad we're expecting, we just need to really try to get those animals inside at all costs, because it's going to be a really rough on them if they have to stay out in the elements and they don't have the appropriate shelter.
Absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
what's happening at the shelter this weekend? And I'm also understanding you're doing something called snowcations to help y'all out.
Yes. So we anticipate that there's a possibility that the shelter may close over the weekend. So what happens when we're closed? There's no animals leaving the shelter. However, our officers are still out and about. They're working, and there will be animals that are still coming in. And with the level of kennel space that we are always at with our dogs, I brought some numbers. Right now we have 171 dogs in the kennel.
Okay.
We have 57 cats for a total of 228 animals. That's just in our 2 shelter locations. So what we're encouraging people to do to help with the space issue so that we don't run into running out of space for dogs is to come over the next day or 2 before the storm gets here and do, instead of a staycation, we're calling it a snowcation. So if you have room to foster or volunteer, anything, you want to come and you want to pick out a dog, take it home for the weekend, give it a really warm, nice, let it get up on your couch and let it have a nice warm place to relax during this big winter weather and all the precipitation that we're expected over the weekend.
Yeah, you also brought up another point. If you see a pet that you might suspect is a stray or just out there roaming around, what should folks do?
Yeah, so if you see an animal that you feel does not have the appropriate shelter, cannot get away from the elements or is out in the elements, and you literally you look around and you don't see anywhere for this dog to get out of the elements, that's in Mecklenburg County. And I want to stress that I know there's a lot of people watching that may not live in Mecklenburg County. So Mecklenburg County residents are going to call 311, and you're going to report this and ask for an animal welfare check. So what that's going to do is that's going to get to us, then dispatch will dispatch us out there. We'll take a look at everything, and on the back side of things, we actually are prepared for that. So we have been stocking up, and I want to there's an anonymous donor that every year gives us money to buy straw and bedding and things like that for outdoor pets in our community. So we have stocked up on that. We have some dog houses, so our officers are ready to help if it's an education issue. Obviously, if it's not and it's worse, we can seize those animals. And I just want one more thing with that. I want to let everybody know that if you're kind of hesitant to call in because you don't want the people you're calling in at to know your name or identity, that anytime that there's a situation where an animal is in peril and is possibly an animal welfare issue as far as safety and humane, then you can be anonymous. So to report any type of animal abuse or an animal neglect, you can remain anonymous. So I think that's important. Mm-hmm. And then outside of Mecklenburg County, what you want to do is you want to contact your local animal care and control. So that's your local government animal care and control in your county that you live in.
Yeah, great to know, Melissa. I want to talk about the pets that you have once this passes over us and we're dealing with some of the aftermath, or even during the storm, when it comes to like watching just the health of your cat or dog or what have you, any signs of potential like hypothermia or frostbite that folks should look out for?
Yeah, I think that when you're talking about your dogs that are outside and your cats that are outside, if you cannot bring them in, then you definitely want to monitor them for things like that. And I would recommend that you need to contact your vet right away if you notice any signs of frostbite or anything like that. I don't have a medical background, so I'm not exactly sure what that would look like, but I think as a pet owner, you will know what that's going to look like. And then just any signs of like lethargy or just them not acting normal. I did want to touch on a couple of things for people who are clearly going to be walking their pets, and all of our pets are going to need to go outside to take breaks. And so what does that look like? Well, you definitely want to keep them short, and you definitely want to make sure of one super thing that I want to talk about, and it's kind of like my little, instead of a pedicure, it's a podicure idea. So you really want to, monitor their coats for one thing, and then their paws. So I have Siberian Huskies, and they have double coat. A lot of dogs have that double coat, and they are really built for this kind of weather because that inside, the underneath coat is very plush, like a cottony sort of insulation layer, and then their outer layers they're almost waterproof. It's unbelievable if you go to wash a German Shepherd or a Husky or something like that. It takes forever to get them wet. So they literally have a protection. A lot of the dogs that we have in the shelter, like our Pitty Mixes and our Chihuahuas and our short-haired dogs, Doberman Pinschers, Rottweilers, they do not have that double coat. So those are the ones you're going to worry about a little bit more, and I would definitely look into getting some sort of dog coat. And because we're expecting so much more rain and sort of wet in this forecast rather than snow here in the Charlotte area, I would look for something that's waterproof, sort of like a ski jacket material, if I was going to pick out a coat for my dog in this type of weather. And then lastly, the paws. This is a big important thing. There's going to be a lot of people putting ice melt out on the sidewalks, and especially if you live in neighborhoods and you're using the sidewalks to walk your animals, they're going to get that on their paws. And if you don't take care of it, what they're going to do is they're going to come in the house, they're going to lay down, and they're going to lick their paws. We don't want them to do that because there's different chemicals in the different types of ice melts. So my suggestion would be, once you get home, have like a little station set up by your door where you have just mild detergent, or Dawn dish detergent's always good to use with animals. Get a little lukewarm water and some rags and just really wipe their paws down. I think it's also going to help your house not get as dirty as well. So kind of a twofold, bonus there. The other thing is, and our vet had this great suggestion, we were talking about booties and things like that. If you don't have dog booties around, like another thing that you can do, they do have waxes and things like that, but we're kind of getting close right now, so I don't know if you could even get those in from Amazon. What she suggested is Vaseline. And so you just take a little bit of Vaseline. It doesn't take a lot. If they lick it, it's not going to hurt a little bit. It's not going to hurt them. Put it on their paw pads, and that's going to kind of put a moisture barrier there. And that's going to help to protect their paw pads as well. You're still going to want to wash it when you bring them back in, but I thought that was a great tip, and most people do have Vaseline laying around the house somewhere.
It doesn't make things slippery?
It does not really, because most of the traction that they're going to go on is like a sidewalk or grass or something like that. So don't do a lot of it. You don't want it to be tacky, but you just want to put a nice little, almost like you're putting on a chapstick. Just a nice little layer. And also, that's a lot easier to do than trying to get on dog booties sometimes.
Carlene knows all this too well. You have a little wiener dog.
And I have booties for turkeys, not a dog's name, but he doesn't particularly love them. But I have to go through it and do the painful thing of putting it on there. But I'm gonna do it because I want his paws to be
Yeah.
but,
Right.
You know, I do have a balm. I think it's like a coconut buttery balm for
Yes.
his paws. Whatever. I was gonna say too. I know it's like last minute, and people are like, "Where do I get a dog coat?" So last minute. I know this is not like an advertisement. Like Home Goods and Marshalls, they have like a huge
Oh, yeah.
range of
Yes.
those
Right, we
things.
forget about
So
some
you
of the
forget
other
some of those little
stores.
other stores that might have them. Like if you need one,
Okay.
those are places to check out.
Yeah.
It is.
Good.
It is. And we always have some available, not always have the right sizes,
Right.
but we do get donations of them from the local pet stores in the community. So if you're really, you know, you're really freaking out because you can't find anything or whatever, swing by Animal Care and Control at Byram. We'll see what we can do for you. We'll go in our closet and let you shop in our little closet.
All right, you are open today, tomorrow, Saturday.
Yes, so we
At
haven't
least.
closed yet.
Okay.
We won't know until the city, since we're under the city of Charlotte. It'll be officially announced from them if we're closed. So we're planning everything as normal, and we are open tomorrow at the main location, which is the one where we're the animal numbers that I gave you today. They are for the main location and for the satellite location. So you can go to either one, and I want to stress that either one of the locations pick up a dog, and it's going to make a difference.
Yes.
And just to review the locations, the main shelter's at 8315 Byram Drive. We're over where all that construction's going on by the
Yes, I drive through
airport.
that all the time.
And we also have our secondary satellite location at 2700 Toomey Avenue, and that's right off of 77 and Remount Road. You can actually see it from 77. They're open 9 to 5, and we are open 11 to 7 the next 2 days. So swing in. I don't want to encourage a lot of people to get out on Saturday morning, not knowing when this is going to happen, but we are planning on being open Saturday morning unless the weather shifts or that sort of thing. But you can look at our Facebook page or our website, and we'll have those announcements up there.
And then obviously Monday's going to be touch and go.
It will be
We'll
touch
see what
and go.
happens. As we head into this rough weekend, any, one big takeaway maybe two takeaways that our viewers should know, Melissa?
Yeah, definitely. You want to treat this their family. I feel like animals are part of your family. You make a commitment when you take them on, adopt them, or whatever, however you ended up with them, that you've made a commitment to them. And we really, really need to be mindful that this weather could really, really, it could cause a lot of hypothermia. It could cause frostbite. It could, especially older dogs, if you have older dogs, really be mindful about that. The small dogs, just be mindful. It's just like when we go out in the cold, we bundle all up, we put our hats and coats and boots and everything on, and we're going to limit the time that we're out there. We kind of need to do that with our animals too. We need to make sure that they're our priority and making sure that we get them out, but for short breaks. And I hope that some people are going to get snow and they're actually going to be able to enjoy it with their animals, and of course send that into WCNC.
Thank
right?
you. Yes, of course.
Right.
That would be fantastic.
Right. And so, yeah, just make sure you're watching them, And then also another final tip is, I think just make sure that you're watching their paws and cleaning their paws when they come back inside.
Okay. Very good. Melissa, thank you so much. I mean, the animals and pets, they give us so much joy. It's the only thing that we can do. It's the right thing to do is to take care of them. Melissa Nicely from Mecklenburg Animal Care and Control. Thanks for coming in. Great advice, information, and messaging for our viewers and our pet owners are out there.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you.
All right, let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head out to some breaking news. So happening right now, this is in Hercules, California. So Hercules, California is in the eastern region of the San Francisco Bay Area. An officer-involved shooting there, blocking all lanes on westbound I-80. Again, this is in Hercules. All westbound lanes of Interstate 80 in Hercules shut down Thursday morning, this morning, happening right now. They're 3 hours behind us, after an officer-involved shooting involving Richmond police. That's according to law enforcement, and that's according, I'm reading from NBC Bay Area's website. So the Hercules Police Department advised motorists to avoid the area around I-80 and Highway 4 due to officers' presence in the area. Police said there is no threat to public safety, but traffic on the freeway and nearby streets is heavily congested. And drivers are being encouraged to take alternate routes. So no timetable for when they will clear this out, but you can see that scene there, causing traffic delays, causing drivers to take an alternate route. This is I-80 in Hercules, California, which is in the eastern region of the San Francisco Bay Area. Officer-involved shooting there on Interstate 80. All right, we will continue to keep an eye on what's playing out there in the Bay Area, but for now we want to go to Washington, D.C. It's happening right now. Former Justice Department Special Counsel Jack Smith defending his investigations of Donald Trump at a congressional hearing where he, I'm reading this from AP News, where he insisted that he acted with without regard to politics and had no second thoughts about the criminal charges he brought. Let's take a listen.
Entire investigation as it was set out? Because putting aside that in 1960, it was already talked about my friend Mr. Tiffany, that Hawaii put forward an alternate slate of electors, the investigation pivoted to President Trump and frankly anybody who knew him. Do you know who Cleta Mitchell is?
Yes, I do.
She's an election lawyer that was involved in filing an election contest on behalf of President Trump in Georgia in December of 2020. A 64-page complaint with over 1,100 pages of exhibits, witness affidavits, and expert witness reports documenting thousands of votes cast in violation of Georgia law, but which were nevertheless included in the vote totals. Now, notwithstanding the disposition of the cases that was filed, is that a criminal act? Filing an election contest on behalf of a candidate for office, a client. Is that a criminal act, yes or no?
No, in fact, we stated...
So why did you deem it appropriate to monitor Cleta Mitchell's long-distance phone records in 2023, 2.5 years after the election contest was filed and after the presidential electors were certified? What about Jenna Ellis? What about Sidney Powell? What about Bill Sepien? What crime did you suspect had been committed by them that would warrant monitoring their phone records 2.5 years after the 2020 election was certified?
With respect to Sidney Powell, she is one of the co-conspirators alleged in the indictment. I don't know what you mean by monitoring, sir, if you're talking...
Well, there were some 400-plus Republican conservative groups and leaders who were targeted by your investigation. Their financial records were obtained, records of the RNC, the Trump campaign, Cleta Mitchell, the Conservative Partnership Institute, the America First Policy Institute, NRCC, NRSC, PACs, conservative groups, people all across the country, citizens, because we hear a lot about members of Congress. And we should, because of separation of powers and the egregious abuse of power. But what we're not talking about enough, in my opinion, are the American citizens that have been targeted. Because frankly, are there any limits to the power of a special prosecutor or special counsel? So much so in your abuse of power that in the summer of 2024, the indictment involving classified documents was dismissed after determining your appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the Constitution, but you continued to sign your name on court filings until the time you resigned from office in January of 2025. A federal judge just recently stated a prosecutor who continues to sign his name in court filings after a disqualification order should face disciplinary action or disbarment. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Did the gentleman have the opportunity to respond?
If the gentleman wants to respond, he can.
With respect to the last point, Judge Cannon's order specifically limited her finding to that proceeding, so there would be nothing improper about continuing to litigate the cases in the case in Washington, D.C., and with respect to Florida, there was nothing improper about taking an appeal of that very decision.
The gentlelady from Vermont is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Smith, I want to discuss Volume 2 of your report, which summarizes the findings of your investigation into President Trump's hoarding of classified documents at Mar-a-Lago and his efforts to obstruct the FBI's investigation. Mr. Smith, is it generally the practice for a special counsel's report to be made public to the American people?
I want to say first, I'm limited what I can say about Volume 2 because of Judge Cannon's order. I can say generally that with respect to special counsels, there are regulations that direct a special counsel to draft a report. Whether that report becomes public is determined, the Attorney General has the authority to determine that.
To the best of your knowledge, was Special Counsel Mueller's report made public in full?
I know it was made public. I'm not sure if it was made public in full.
What about Special Counsel Hur's report?
My recollection is his report was made public in full. I believe that's correct.
And Special Counsel Weiss's report?
I do not know.
Okay. Now, I understand that the district judge, Aileen Cannon, the Trump appointee who oversaw the case in Florida, issued a gag order that prevents you from discussing any parts of the classified documents investigation that is not already public. I understand that, including your findings that you laid out in Volume 2 of that report. Am I correct that the reason your report is not available in full to the public is because of this gag order?
I wrote a report. The Attorney General, it was submitted to him. I understand generally that there's been litigation about whether this report would be public or not. I have not been a party to that litigation. I just know that there is an order, and I know the Department of Justice, the current Department of Justice, has interpreted that order in a way that I cannot speak about anything that could possibly be in that report and its findings.
And when Judge Cannon issued that gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
I'm sorry?
When Judge Cannon issued the gag order, she cited pending cases against Trump's co-defendants. Is that correct?
That's my recollection.
Are those cases still pending?
No, they're not.
No, they're not. So there is no reason, from where I sit, for this important information to be not made public. At this point, I want to turn now to President Trump's attacks on you. Trump has a playbook for how he handles people who try to hold him accountable. In August 2023, right after your office indicted him, President Trump shared that playbook on social media for everyone to see. He wrote, "If you go after me, I'm coming for you." Trump has said that you, Mr. Smith, should be investigated and put in prison. He called you a disgrace to humanity, a radical left Marxist, a criminal. In fact, Trump has used the words deranged Jack Smith 185 times on Truth Social. How do you think that these statements have impacted you, your staff, and your investigation?
With respect to me, I think the statements are meant to intimidate me. I will not be intimidated. I think these statements are also made as a warning to others what will happen if they stand up. And I am, as I say, I'm not going to be intimidated. We did our work pursuant to department policy. We followed the facts and we followed the law, and that process resulted in proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed serious crimes. I'm not going to pretend that didn't happen because he's threatening me.
And Mr. Smith, do you believe that President Trump's Department of Justice will find some way to indict you?
I believe that they will do everything in their power to do that because they've been ordered to by the president.
That's very concerning, obviously. It's very concerning to all of us, at least on this side of the aisle. This is Trump's playbook at work. Complain loudly, gin up hatred and resentment, then express a hope that somebody will do something, but never explicitly order anyone to act, and then watch as his followers and loyalists go after their targets. This is what happened on January 6th. Trump stood at the Ellipse and gave a campaign speech to his supporters, and he said, if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. And I think it's clear that his intimidation will stop at nothing. I want to speak on behalf, in closing, I want to speak on behalf
No
of
closing.
people.
Chairman, regular order.
No, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm
regular
sorry
order.
you have gone over numerous times.
Time belongs to the gentlelady from Vermont. I'll let you go a couple more
Thank you,
seconds.
Mr. Chair.
Like I have all day.
Thank you. On behalf of the people of the state of Vermont, thank you for all of your 30 years of service to this country and to the police officers sitting here. I'm ashamed that you have not gotten your due.
Time of the gentlelady has
I
expired.
yield back.
The gentleman from New Jersey is
I've got a UC request.
Gentleman, the ranking member is recognized for UC.
Thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. The first is a New York Times article titled "Hunting Leaks, Trump DOJ Officials Seized Records of Democrats," explaining how the Trump administration subpoenaed Apple for data from the accounts of at least a dozen people tied to the House Intelligence Committee in 2017-18, including Representative Swalwell and Senator Adam Schiff.
Without objection.
And the other, similarly, is Trump's DOJ secretly obtained phone and text message logs of 43 congressional staffers and 2 members of Congress. That's December 10, 2024.
Without objection. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New Jersey.
Thank you, Chairman. You know, I don't even know where to go because there's so much, Mr. Smith. There really is. But it isn't, what I do know is it's much more than how much people like or hate you, or like or hate Donald Trump, or like or hate Republicans, or like or hate Democrats. This is about the system. It's about what the Department of Justice did. It's about what you did. The core of the hearing is all about, can Americans still trust the justice system? Is it fair? Was it fair under you? And all they don't expect you to be perfect, but they expect you to treat everyone the same, Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, but that wasn't the case. When you treat people differently because of their political status, their political party, their ideals, that's hypocrisy. And I'm sorry to say, and I don't say it lightly, I do consider you to be a hypocrite. With that being said, you know, I think the prosecutors and the people around you stretch norms, change standards depending upon who was under investigation. So you don't like Donald Trump, and so you're a liberal Democrat, whatever the case may be. And they went after him. And by the way, it's interesting, in all those congressional records that were subpoenaed, all those congressional records that were looked at, was one of them a Democrat? No. The answer is no. I'll answer for you. So I got simple questions. I always say I'm a simple guy, but it really boils down to this. How much can Americans trust this system? In your special counsel report, you stated President Trump engaged and was guilty of criminal conspiracies, and he was guilty of criminal conduct, and you publicly testified you believed you had the proof, etc. If prosecutors deal away with cases, if they declare that it's guilty and it's over before a jury verdict, would Americans trust the justice system more, or would they? Would they trust the system more? The answer, go ahead, answer, please answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand what you were asking me.
So when this was all going on, before, and I believe it was political, before there was an entire case and we went through the whole case, you pretty much declared, and I'm not going to read the whole thing through again, that President Trump was guilty. That wasn't your job. That's a judge's job. It's a jury's job. It's not your job. Don't you think that's unfair, that that's wrong, that didn't make the playing field level? Did it make people less trustworthy of the system, yes or no?
No. When I announced the charges in the election case, I specifically stated that the case needed to be tried and that he had a right to go to trial and he was presumed innocent.
And thank you for, I just want a simple answer because we are limited on time. I disagree with you. I don't think you did. Your office secretly subpoenaed and got records of members of Congress, and you kept those subpoenas hidden through non-disclosure orders. That's wrong. They should have known. You want to do that, fine, it's wrong. Number one, it's wrong because people have a right, the American public has a right to know, the elected officials have a right to know. It's your right to subpoena them.
All right, let's take a step aside. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. Again, folks out there, hopefully you're getting ready for this winter storm that is going to blow through the Carolinas this weekend. Also getting ready, crews from Duke Energy, NCDOT, SCDOT, and of course, our friends with Highway Patrol, both in North Carolina and South Carolina. And right now on the program, we have Master Trooper Hannah Davidson, South Carolina Highway Patrol. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hopefully you're staying safe out there. I guess my first question, how are you guys preparing for this stuff?
We're trying to prepare, just letting drivers know. We don't see this very often, so it takes us all by surprise. But we do want to emphasize, if you don't have to go anywhere this weekend, if the weather's bad, just try to stay at home as much as you can. No one can drive in this kind of weather. It's hard to drive on ice. But we just want to throw out some safety concerns that we might have for the drivers out there this weekend.
What are some of the questions you've been getting? I'm sure you've been getting a lot of questions from folks, from drivers. What are some of the questions you've been getting?
Yes, when they hit ice, what are they supposed to do? And we ask that drivers not slam on brakes. When they slam on brakes, it locks the wheels, obviously, and sends them out of control. So we just ask, if you do hit ice, just lightly tap the brakes and take control of the steering wheel. Don't overcorrect. I know the first thing that we think to do is jerk the steering wheel and slam on brakes, and that's actually the wrong thing to do. So as soon as you hit that ice, just lightly tap the brakes and get control of the steering wheel.
So once this stuff moves in, it's here, and you guys are going to be out there on the roads, keeping us safe. Hopefully nobody's out there driving. But can you walk us through what troopers are doing out on these roads during events like this?
Yes, we're trying to be prepared. So if we see stranded motors on the side of the roads, our biggest concern is making sure that they can get to safety, because with the temperatures being so low, it doesn't take very long for those temperatures to become very dangerous. So what we're doing right now is just stopping with every car that we see on the side of the road, just to make sure that they have help coming. So that's our biggest concern right now, preparing for the storm.
My last question before I let you go, you've been so generous with your time this afternoon. How are troopers, how are you staying safe out there once this stuff hits? Because, I mean, you're in the middle of this stuff. I mean, we're telling people to stay home, but you have to be out there. How are you guys staying safe?
We take the calls, of course, by priority. If it depends on what it is, if we respond or not. But our biggest concern is the safety of everyone else. So we put them first, obviously. But it depends on what they're out there doing. But we'll obviously come to help. But sometimes our response times might be a little longer. So just expect that, just due to the call volume. But we're out here to help, and so are the other agencies. But just use, common sense. If you're an essential employee, we know that you have to get to work. But if you're just out here looking at, damages or looking at the snow or the ice, just please stay at home. Be considerate of first responders and other people out here having to go to work.
Nicely said. Use some common sense. Also be patient, because y'all have a lot of ground to cover. Master Trooper Hannah Davidson, thank you for your time this afternoon. She's with South Carolina Highway Patrol. Be safe out there. And yeah, we'll try to check in with you a little later.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a tough job right there. We want them to be safe out there, because they have to be out there protecting us. But like she said, use your common sense as you hit the road. I know there are a lot of essential employees. I don't want to be ignorant to that, and even us as news folks. And I hate to make it about us, but we got to be at work too. So we're also working through stuff just like you at home on what to do and how to prepare. So we're learning together. Let's take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head back to Washington, D.C., where happening right now, former special counsel Jack Smith testifying about his Trump investigations. Let's take a listen in.
Very bad day for you. This wasn't, Mr. Smith, about upholding the law. It was about tearing down President Trump and anyone close to him. You even tried to ram through a politically motivated final report after your cases collapsed, including the Presidential Transition Act and basic fairness. But here's the good part, America, here's the good part. The American people saw right through it. They rejected, sir, your witch hunt loud and clear in November, handing President Trump a commanding victory. The voters spoke loud and clear. They wanted an end to the weaponization of our justice system. In your opening statement, you spoke about proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Smith, I will give you proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Donald Trump winning the popular vote by over 2 million votes, the Electoral College by 85 votes, along with every single swing state. Now, sir, that is proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the crap you were shoveling did not pass the smell test with the American people. To put it bluntly, Mr. Smith, the stink remains on you. And lastly, I would like to quickly address the police officers of January 6th. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Fanone, Mr. Gonell, Mr. Hodges. I'm a member of the new select committee to actually examine what happened that day. And I can tell you, gentlemen, that the fault does not lie with Donald Trump. It lies with Yogananda Pittman and the U.S. Capitol leadership team. We know they had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. Claim my time, yeah.
You will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. We've had some disruptions already. We don't need that. Let the gentleman may continue.
We know the Capitol leadership team, specifically Yogananda Pittman, had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. And the Capitol itself was the target. We knew the extremist groups were going to be there. And why do I say that? It was your own report from your intelligence section, the IICD, which was run by Pittman, in the January 3rd special events section. It was in it. It was in it. And Mr. Dunn, I believe that you thought that day would be like just any other. In your testimony to the January 6th committee, you said you found out how ugly was going to get on a cell phone. Somebody sent you some information on social media. The point is, you were all unprepared to deal with that day. And that's because your leadership failed to share the intelligence with you. It was their fault, folks. It was their fault. It was not President Trump, and we are going to expose it for the first time because the Benny Thompson, the sham committee didn't do it.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
The sham committee didn't do it. The report is 845 pages. Donald Trump's name is mentioned 4,207 times. We know what the committee wanted to do is to not allow Donald Trump to come back and win again. And they failed miserably. And I hope you now can see that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance to my distinguished colleague out of Jersey.
I just want to quickly go over something because we keep rewriting history. The president said peacefully and patriotically. What don't we understand about peacefully and patriotically? He asked for the National Guard. That was ignored. He asked Speaker Pelosi. What don't we understand that?
Will the gentleman yield for a question? Are you saying Nancy Pelosi controls the National Guard?
Wait a minute.
The president could have ordered the National Guard if he wanted to, and you know that.
My time, I lost some of my time.
The time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. You have a few more seconds.
And finally, how many elected officials say we're going to fight to win an election? It's terminology used all the time, seriously. And of course, if they were guilty, they should be prosecuted. The problem was there were many in the mix.
If unanimous consent, the gentleman yields back. The
And last thing, your hand gestures, Mr. Fanone. You need medication.
The time of gentleman expired. The audience will be in order, the committee will be in order, and the gentlelady from Georgia is recognized for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two unanimous consent requests to enter into the record, two articles.
Gentlelady can proceed.
An article dated December 29, 2025, titled Wall Street Journal Editorial Board Calls Out MAGA's Latest 2020 Stolen Election Nonsense.
Objection.
And the second article, an article dated December 23, 2025, titled Fact Check. Fulton County's 315,000 unsigned early votes are not proof of electoral fraud.
Without objection, the gentleman from Illinois is recognized for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Chairman. Under unanimous consent, I ask to enter into the record the Judiciary Democrats' January 2026 report titled, Where Are They Now? The Perpetrators of January 6th and the Defenders of Democracy Who Stopped Them, which profiles the illustrious career trajectories of some of the key actors from January 6th who were pardoned by Donald Trump. And secondly,
objection.
A second report, January 2026 report from Judiciary Democrats 1 year later, assessing the public safety implications of President Trump's mass pardon of 1,600 January 6 rioters and insurrectionists.
Without objection, the gentlelady from California is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for joining us. You know, most people are wondering why you are even here today. But it's because we've heard conspiracy after conspiracy that the 2020 election was rigged, and Capitol Police officers were harmed and died because of those conspiracies. And we have important elections coming up, and the people want them to happen, and they want them to be fair. And the one person who should be telling the truth about elections is the president. But Donald Trump has not and is still not telling the truth about the 2020 elections. In fact, there is a January 6th page on the taxpayer-funded White House website that says the election was stolen from Trump, a blatant, disproven lie he knows is totally false. So one of my Republican colleagues earlier brought up Trump's mind state, that he knew he lost, and he knew that what he was saying was untrue, but that you had no proof. So, Mr. Smith, what evidence did you develop to suggest Trump knew he had lost the 2020 election?
We had evidence from a variety of sources, evidence from people who were close to Donald Trump and who he relied on, people who wanted him to win the election, people who were employed by his campaign to help him win the election. Our evidence is that this was a conspiracy and that Donald Trump specifically sought to prey on party loyalty. Our investigation involved interviewing and subpoenaing records of Republicans because that's who Donald Trump sought to prey on to stay in office. And the reality is certain people refused to do that. The vice president refused to go along with that. People in various states' legislatures refused to go along with that. And the reality is that if we took this case to trial, a good number of our witnesses would be Republicans. If a Democrat had committed these crimes, had done these things, I would have subpoenaed a number of Democrats. I would have subpoenaed their records.
And I'm going to ask you about that. But correct, it's not like he was calling Nancy Pelosi. So why is it legally important to know that Trump knew he was lying when he said the election was stolen?
That was part of our proof at trial, and it was relevant to the charges, specifically to the first charge, to defraud the United States. It is permissible for someone to lie, but when they use speech to commit a crime, to facilitate a crime, that is not protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has been very clear on that, and this very issue was litigated in the case. The defense raised this very issue. And one thing I want to be clear about today, the case that I investigated and the case we had, it was built to be tried in a courtroom, not in the media. Our case was built to withstand the crucible of litigation, and our assessment was that we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that would do that.
So what I heard you say is that when you lie, and you know you're lying, and then you act on that lie to overturn the democratic process, that is a felony. A January 6er actually said, if I can't trust him, then who can I trust? Exactly. You know, we cannot even trust our own president. And in fact, there's so many other things that you can say that you're not allowed to say because a Trump-appointed judge sealed the documents, refusing to release the files yet again, which is why we could probably ask you far more questions if those were unsealed. So I know I don't have that much time. I want to now shift to these allegations from my Republican colleagues about the collection of phone records of Republican senators. I guess some of the ones that were trying to get $500,000 of taxpayer dollars. So many of the phone records of members were requested before you were appointed as special counsel, yes or no? That's true? Is that accurate?
Yes,
Yeah.
some subpoenas occurred before I was special counsel.
And what do you say to those who claim you chose to target Republicans because you only collected phone records for Republicans?
The conspiracy I was investigating targeted Republicans.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier.
That's right. And so you would have requested any relevant call records necessary for your investigation of a Republican or of a Democrat?
That's correct. And to be clear, if a Democrat committed these acts, we would have sought those. I could just add one thing. We interviewed Rudy Giuliani in the course of this investigation, and we asked him, why did you, in one of the voicemails he left for the senator, mention the fact that it was Republicans that you were reaching out to? And he said, because the Democrats weren't going to help us, and even some Republicans wouldn't help us. And so our evidence shows repeatedly that the plan was to see if you could prey on people's party loyalty.
Some of the gentlelady's expired. The gentlelady from...
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, it was during your deposition with our committee that you revealed that you tasked your team, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan January 6th committee. You had to have known at the time the controversy surrounding this committee, including the fact that all of the members had been appointed by Nancy Pelosi, who disallowed the Republicans from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions as to your strategy for conspiring with the J6 committee. You had every possible resource available to you. Your prosecution of President Trump was clearly a priority for the Biden administration. And it is clear that you had an unlimited budget. And you also left no stone unturned, even subpoenaing records from sitting members of the House and Senate. So what information could the J6 committee possess that you and the nation's top law enforcement agency could not obtain on your own?
I did request J.P. Cooney.
What did they have that you couldn't obtain on your own?
In any investigation, you would...
What information did they have that you were not able to obtain on your own?
I couldn't know that until I had their information.
Was there anything there? Did you find that they had information that you were not able to obtain?
I don't recall specifically every bit of information. What I can tell you is we took in their information because we wanted to collect any information that could be relevant. We made our own independent assessment of the evidence.
Okay, so from the time that you were appointed as special counsel up to the date of your resignation in January of 2025, did you personally have any contact with any members, staff, or contractors of the House's January 6th Select Committee, and if so, who?
I do not believe I had contact with anybody personally from the January Select
The January 6th committee failed to archive or preserve its video recordings of witness interviews, deleting or destroying as many as 900 interview summaries or transcripts involving more than 1 full terabyte of digital data. I repeat, the J6th committee destroyed evidence. Let that sink in. Why would they do such a thing? I think we have a dang good idea. The committee actually used selective clips from these videos and transcripts during their hearings, and yet by destroying this evidence, they have denied Congress and the public the ability to obtain their full content and context. They created their narrative by selective use of the evidence before them, so how very convenient. Did you or your team receive any of those witness transcripts or video recordings of transcribed interviews from the Select Committee that were not released to the public?
What I can tell you is that I requested J.P. Cooney to contact the Select Committee.
Do you know if you received any of the evidence or testimony that the J6 committee eventually destroyed?
I don't have any information that the J6 Committee...
You don't know one way or the other as you sit here today?
No, what I'm telling you is that I requested all the information we could get from the January 6th.
Has all of the information that you requested been preserved? All of the information from the J6 committee, has that been preserved?
The information that we requested and received, we reviewed it. It was
Has
part
it been
of our
preserved?
File. Yes, as part
Thank
of
you.
our files. And
Were you or your team advised, or did you get the impression from anyone affiliated with the January 6th committee that these documents were not for public release, even though portions of them had already been shown to the American people? Were you advised to keep any of the information from the J6 committee confidential?
as I sit here right now, I don't recall that.
Okay.
I recall...
Did the J6 committee provide you with the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony as part of the trove of documents that you received?
As I sit here now, I don't recall, but it would...
Well, you're familiar with her testimony, aren't you?
I am.
And in fact, wouldn't you agree with me that Ms. Hutchinson's testimony, especially the most explosive allegations made, was comprised of hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay? Come on, you're an attorney, Mr. Smith. You can answer the question. Of course it was hearsay. And hearsay isn't admissible in a court of law, is it? Why? Because it is inherently unreliable, and the victim or the target of a prosecution is not able to cross-examine. Isn't that correct? In fact, Mr. Smith, if you had attempted to walk into court with Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, you would have been thrown out on your ear. No judge, no legitimate judge would have ever allowed the testimony of Cassidy Hutchins to be admitted in a court of law, would they?
I disagree.
Well, and then we've already talked about your record.
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady's time has long since expired.
The time of the gentlelady has expired. The gentleman from Florida.
Can I do one UC request first?
The gentleman is recognized.
This is from factcheck.org. Meme rehashes old false claim that J6 committee destroyed evidence from October 15, 2024. And this is from the District of Columbia National Guard website, stating that this is the only National Guard unit in America which reports exclusively and only to the president.
Without objection, the gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we're definitely not in a court of law today. Half this shit wouldn't come in if we were. I mean, good God. You know? I want to talk about something one of my colleagues, Mr. Nell, said from Texas. He sits on this new January 6th subcommittee, which I also happen to sit on. And he said the same thing in the subcommittee the other week, that it wasn't President Trump that inspired January 6th, right? It wasn't him. He said in the subcommittee that it was actually Ray Epps. Ray Epps. He was the one who told people to break the law and the windows and the doors and to beat police officers and hang Mike Pence and try to break into the floor of the House and wiping feces on the walls. It was all this guy, Ray Epps, right? So who is Ray Epps? Why is he so powerful? So, I mean, I just did a quick, Google search of Ray Epps, and his Wikipedia page says the powerful Ray Epps is a wedding planner to the Oath Keepers. This is the wedding planner? That's the mastermind of January. You went from Donald Trump. It wasn't Donald. Who are we going to blame? Who could it be? How about the wedding planner to the Oath Keepers? I mean, it's just pathetic. But, my colleagues love the past, Mr. Smith. Love the past. That's why you're here before Pam Bondi. Okay? We haven't had the Attorney General here. We didn't have her last year. She's the only one in the cabinet to not come in committee of reference, but they love the past. Oh, they, love talking about January 6th and Hunter Biden and COVID and Barack Obama and Hillary's emails. They love the past. These people love the past so much, they're still reenacting the Civil War. Okay? Love the past.
Right now.
But they hate talking about the present. But you know what? Let's talk about the past real quick. Here are some quotes, because I heard one of my colleagues call you a hypocrite. Here are some quotes from my colleagues. Chairman Jordan, right after January 6th. Stop the violence, support Capitol Police. Ted Cruz, those storming the Capitol need to stop right now. The Constitution protects but not violence. Chip Roy, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem. Troy Nels, oh my God, him again. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with Capitol Police. Darrell Issa, the violence and turmoil we witnessed in Washington, D.C. was completely unacceptable. Rep. McClintock, the attack on Capitol strikes the most sacred act of our democracy. And former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, whose name we...
All right, so we're going to take a step aside from that hearing, and let's go to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. All right, so volunteers are out surveying the homelessness population in Mecklenburg County. This is a big thing. You probably heard of it. The point-in-time count, basically federally required annual count of the unhoused population. Now, organizers say this weekend's weather, which we have been talking about, makes this even more important because we got to make sure our unhoused population, folks out there, are safe, accounted for. WCNC Charlotte's Julie Kay is live for us in Charlotte. Julie, you're following both the impacts coming up this weekend and the work being done to help our unhoused community, and also more about this point-in-time count that took place.
Yeah, and it kind of combines together, right? The point-in-time count is an annually required thing from the federal government, but it just happened to fall right before this weekend of severe weather where it's going to really highlight the issues that we're having with this affordable housing crisis in Charlotte, lack of resources, lack of shelter beds. And so that's kind of the conversation I had with not just the people at the point in time count, but some other resource groups here in Charlotte, some nonprofits that are going to be kind of picking up the slack of the lack of shelter beds. People cannot be outside in this, especially for long periods of time, especially overnight. It's going to be cold, it's going to be wet, and it's going to be dangerous for long periods of time. And so places like I'm outside of Block Club right now, a little bit north of Uptown, and they are stocking up on blankets, sleeping bags, food. There's already some people in there getting set up now. They're taking in donations. The point in time count, you're not going to get an official number on exactly how many people and where until probably closer to May. They're going to be compiling those numbers tonight, and volunteer groups that are out talking to people and checking on people are going to be done in the next couple hours or so, and that's when they'll start counting the numbers. But they already know at like the midpoint of today that those numbers are higher than last year. And unfortunately, that's not been surprising to any of the people I've talked to, which really highlights, like I said, kind of the larger issue here. This weather will highlight it even more.
Yeah, you're talking about dangerous conditions. Again, you have organizations like you just mentioned, Block Love, doing all they can to help our unhoused community. You can catch Julie at 4 and 6 o'clock this evening with more on the story. Julie, thank you for your time and be safe out there.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, let's head to break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. We want to head now to Minneapolis, where Vice President J.D. Vance is speaking. Border Patrol behind him, federal agents behind him, as unrest continues there in Minneapolis, as federal action and troops are still there. Let's take a listen in to what Vice President Vance is saying.
Protest our immigration policy, but do it peacefully. If you assault a law enforcement officer, the Trump administration and the Department of Justice is going to prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And I wanted to show some support for these guys who, frankly, are operating in a very, very tough environment. I heard a lot of stories today about that I think drives home just how chaotic the environment on the ground here has already gotten. For example, did you know that within the last, I think, week or so, maybe even more recently than that, you had a couple of ICE officers who were off duty, who had been doxxed online, who were sitting and having a meal at a restaurant in Minneapolis when a bunch of agitators showed up, locked the door, made them feel like they were in danger for their lives, and then, of course, it was federal law enforcement officers who had to come up, lower the temperature on the situation, and actually get those 2 off-duty officers to a point of safety. Now imagine, if you would, your life and your perspective on law enforcement if you can't even go to a restaurant without some agitators locking the door and making you feel like your life is in danger. That is the environment that has been created, I think, by a lot of very, frankly, far-left people, but also by some of the state and local law enforcement officials who could do a much better job in cooperating and working. And by the way, I'm not talking about the cops, who these guys told me on the ground, the cops are very sympathetic to what they're dealing with. I'm talking about state and local elected law enforcement officials who could do a lot better job in making their lives a little bit easier, and in the process, they would make the lives of all Minneapolis residents easier, and that's what we want. We want to be able to enforce the immigration laws on the one hand, while on the other hand, we want to make sure that people in Minneapolis are able to go about their day. And I want to say just one last point on this. So, I heard from a business leader today. He told me a very tough story, and I think so much of what's gone wrong in Minneapolis is people not trying to understand the perspective of somebody else. Try to understand what somebody else is experiencing, whether they're a law enforcement officer or anybody in the community here in Minneapolis. So they told me a story about this manufacturing facility where an illegal immigrant was being arrested. And as these employees are going into the manufacturing facility, all of a sudden an illegal immigrant shows up, they don't know it's an illegal immigrant, and then a bunch of ICE officers descend. Now these people just want to go to work, they want to go to work safely, and now all of a sudden there's a major law enforcement operation happening right outside their place of business. Now from one perspective, I certainly understand why a business leader or why an employee would say, whoa, what's going on? It's a little scary no matter your position in life if a bunch of cop cars show up and they're arresting somebody. Now, the additional context is that we know that people online have been encouraging illegal immigrants that one way they can evade arrest is by showing up at a legitimate place of business, making it impossible for these guys to actually enforce our immigration laws. So while I can understand the perspective of somebody who doesn't want to see an arrest happen at their place of work, I can also understand the perspective of our immigration enforcement officers who have to do their job and can't allow a heckler's veto over our immigration enforcement. And so much of what's gone wrong is the failure to do that. And here's the point. We can do a good job of enforcing our immigration laws without the chaos, but it actually requires the cooperation of state and local officials. If you look at blue cities and blue states, red cities and red states, you go to Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee. You go to the state of Texas, obviously a very red state, or the state of Tennessee, a very red state, but you've got blue cities within those states, you do not have this level of chaos. The reason why things have gotten so out of hand is because of failure of cooperation between the state and local authorities and what these guys are trying to do. We have a ton of resources, a ton of ICE agents in this city right now that I would rather us not have. I'd love to send those guys home. They're not even doing targeted immigration enforcement. They are trying to protect ICE officers who are doing immigration enforcement, because when a crowd surrounds them and these guys call 911, the local officials, the local cops have been told to stand down. So we have people here who aren't even doing immigration enforcement, they're doing force protection. So that if a rioter tries to ruin the life or assault an ICE officer, they're actually protected. Now, why doesn't it make more sense for the local cops to get involved in that situation? Why not just have the mayor or the local officials tell the police officers, you know what, if an ICE officer is being assaulted by a far-left agitator, you are invited, you should actually help them. That's what would work out in any normal situation, and that's what happens in nearly every jurisdiction, red or blue, in the United States of America. The reason it hasn't happened here is because the local authorities have been told, stand down, do not help ICE, promote the violence, promote the agitation, but don't do anything to lower the temperature and lower the chaos. That's a problem. Here's another example of how the lack of cooperation between state and local officials makes it harder for us to do our job and turns up the temperature. Let's say, for example, we have a criminal migrant who is a sex offender. And let's say that we've got to go and arrest that person who, Democrat or Republican, wants a sex offender living in their community. I would assume, I would hope, that most people don't. But because they're an illegal alien, we don't know their last address. We may have known their address 3 years ago, but we don't know their address now. What we'd like to do is talk to local officials and say, you know what, according to the Medicaid rules, where was the last address this person was domiciled? Or according to a SNAP application, a food stamps application, maybe that could give us insight to where this person is today. Or maybe they had some local court trouble. We could go to the local courthouse or even the local jail and try to find where this criminal sex offender is today. The local authorities have been told, do not cooperate. So these guys are trying to go out and enforce the law. They're trying to arrest sex offenders, but they're trying to do it in an environment where local officials have been told, do not help them, do not provide intelligence about where these sex offenders might be. This is disgraceful. And there are a lot of things that all of us could do better to lower the temperature, but the number one thing that I learned today is that the best way to facilitate reasonable enforcement of the law, but also to lower the chaos in Minneapolis, would be for state and local officials to cooperate. Now, I will say, on one final positive note, I actually think that there's some hope, some reason to think that there's going to be better cooperation in the weeks and months to come. I think that because I've talked to some of the local officials here, I think there are reasons to believe that these people are going to step up and actually ask the cops to protect our ICE officers when they're being assaulted, who are going to ask the local courts to cooperate with getting criminal sex offenders out of our community. That's a good thing. That's the good news, and that's something I'm going to work on when I get back to Washington. But please, if you're a local official, if you're the mayor of this town, if you have any influence over those people, just tell them to cooperate. Because we could have immigration enforcement operate as smoothly and without the chaos that we see in Austin, Texas, or Memphis, Tennessee, or even rural parts of the state of Minnesota. All we need is a little cooperation. I guarantee we're going to do the best to be professional, to respect people's rights, to not do anything that we don't have to do in order to enforce immigration laws, but it would make our lives a lot easier, it would make our officers a lot safer, and it would make Minneapolis much less chaotic if we had a little bit of cooperation from the state and local officials. With that, I'll shut up and take some questions. Thank you, guys.
Vice President Pence, a local school district here is alleging ICE agents detained a 5-year-old after preschool on Tuesday. We've also seen multiple American citizens detained by ICE or harassed by ICE in the last 6 weeks. Are you proud of how your administration is conducting this immigration crackdown here in Minnesota right now?
Well, I'm proud of the fact that we're standing behind law enforcement, and I'm proud of the fact that we're enforcing the country's laws. But, you know, you asked a question about this 5-year-old kid. I actually saw this terrible story.
All right, so that is Vice President J.D. Vance there speaking there. Behind him, ICE agents, Border Patrol, speaking in Minneapolis amid the unrest there, the protests there in Minnesota. All right, so let's come back here at home. Big story here. Is the winter weather. It is set to roll through here. So we checked in with meteorologist Brittany Van Voorhees. Brittany is back here in studio. I was about to say as promised, but I don't think we promised anybody that you were going to be back. We should have. I think we made those plans after you were here.
We made those plans at the commercial break.
During
so
the commercial,
the good
yeah.
folks at home did not see it.
I don't even remember, but yes, we're back.
Brittany's like,
We're
what are you
back.
talking about,
Yeah,
man?
I don't remember if we talked about it. What I messaged Nick and Carlene before I came in here, as I said, a little bit less yapping, a little bit more forecasting, although it was all just to give people kind of suggestions of what to do. So moral of the story is you need to be prepared by Saturday afternoon to be in your safe place. I was suggesting earlier around 4 p.m. I think that's a safe bet. That way 4 o'clock hits and you're like, oh man, I forgot XYZ. You still have a little bit of time to go out, run and grab it before the actual impacts start to begin. This is going to start Saturday afternoon, linger all day on Sunday, and start to taper off as we get closer to Monday. So essentially, as you look at the weather impact timeline, you can see that taper up and taper back down. You can see a few areas Monday, late Tuesday morning, likely still going to be impacted. This will depend on how much ice we get. With temperatures Monday afternoon barely getting above the freezing mark, there is going to be a risk that we'll still see black ice, slippery conditions all the way into Tuesday morning too. You can see on Saturday the winter weather impacts are medium. I would say that's from pretty much the mountains down south. This is because we're going to be chilly and we're going to be, again, ramping up these impacts. By the time you get to Sunday and Monday morning, those colors are going to be widespread in the high and the extreme. So here's a really good way, I think, of explaining to people what the different impacts are going to be. Starting Saturday afternoon, all day Sunday, tapering off by Monday. Biggest is going to be hazardous travel and freezing rain. That is going to be not only the biggest impact for folks that maybe have to be out on the roadways for whatever reason, but remember, freezing rain can accumulate onto trees. Sometimes those trees can fall. That can cause issues on power lines, but also 0.5 inches, so half of an inch of ice, does feel like on a power line, someone 500 pounds is sitting on top of it, or something 500 pounds. So that alone can allow for a power line to snap. If this forecast verifies, we will have likely widespread travel issues, but also scattered power outages. Previously, it did look like most of this was going to be straight freezing rain. The only thing that's really changed over the last 24 hours has been that freezing rain will mix in a little bit more with sleet. So while I'll say that is a slight improvement, that does not mean that we're out of the woods. I would say if we were at, and I don't want to assign a number to it, but if we were at DEFCON 5 yesterday, we're probably at DEFCON 4.5. It's still substantial. Yeah. This is not like, oh my gosh, we have no impacts. It's not that substantial of a change. Thing I will also reiterate is that if you are using a generic weather app on your phone to get your forecasts, please stop doing that. I don't know if you can actually delete Apple Weather from your iPhone, but it's not a reliable source. A lot of those apps are still showing 10 to 20 inches of snow in Charlotte, and I can guarantee with 100%, if not 200% certainty that that is not going to happen. There will be at times probably some snow mixing in, but that is essentially just going to add to the mess. If we get any kind of pure snow, it will add to the mess we already have of freezing rain and sleet. Chris was comparing this yesterday, and Brad as well, to 2002, 2016. 2002, a little bit more severe. I think we'll sit closer to 2016 with that latest change. But again, that was still the last time we had a widespread ice storm here in the Charlotte area. And I would take a gander that since 2021, think about how many statistically people have moved here to Charlotte. That was just 5 years ago. I was one of those people. Most people who are living across the metro have moved here within the last, let's say, 5 to 7 years, right? It was a big influx post-COVID, and those people did not experience 2016. So please, if you are from up north, you're not from Charlotte, you're from Florida, wherever it is, please remember that not only if you've been through ice storms before, this is a different city, handles it differently. The people also who live here handle it differently, whether that's travel or otherwise. So don't please compare it to your previous experiences unless you have lived in Charlotte and you were here in 2016 or 2002. Essentially, unless you're Larry Sprinkle, you should not be comparing it to your previous experience. So let's rewind back. Futurecast ice. We'll start to see these areas, snow and freezing rain Saturday afternoon. Accumulation becomes much more noticeable by Saturday night, and any set time you get essentially to 0.1 or higher, that's when the biggest impacts are going to be. If you had to ask me which day will be the worst day, Sunday by a landslide. Saturday afternoon things start, Sunday's the worst. We do hope for improvement Monday, but a lot of that will depend on how much ice we accumulate, because again, those temperatures Monday will barely get out of the freezing mark, and even if they do start to melt a little bit, with a low temperatures Tuesday morning in the mid-teens, quick refreeze. So again, this is going to be a big impact across the board. If you were looking for straight snow, you got to go to Ashe, Watauga, and Avery County, and even some of those areas will mix in with sleet. Sleet and ice is the issue from pretty much the I-40 corridor all the way down toward Lancaster, Chesterfield, Chester counties. So our area, our region, our 22 counties that go from Ashe at the tippy top, Chesterfield at the very southeast, are going to be impacted by this storm. Every single person in our 22 county DMA area of interest, where we cover news and weather here in the Charlotte metro, is going to be impacted. The worst is going to be right along the I-40 corridor and down south to I-85, right essentially in the bullseye of Mecklenburg County. And it's not just here locally, but across a lot of the country right now. You're seeing Texas, New England, or New Mexico. New England's under a winter storm watch, but New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, northern Louisiana, southern Missouri, all the way into Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Ohio. All of those areas recently getting upgraded to a winter storm warning, which is the highest level of winter storm alerts. We are still under a winter storm watch. Well, the reason why I'm telling you this is these areas that are west of us that are getting the storm first are already starting to be upgraded. There is a chance that we will be at some point as well, but that just shows you the broad scope of this. Think about during a hurricane how oftentimes we will send help, let's say to Florida, or another state will send help to us. This could be a situation in which, yes, we have already organizations. I know Governor Stein was talking about this earlier, other states that have kind of helped, but this is going to be one of those times where we are going to see the potential of other areas maybe not being able to help like they usually would because it's going to be so widespread. So again, that's what's happening with your winter storm watches and warnings. Let's talk really quickly about what's happening right now. A little bit of rain. This has been persistent over the last few hours here in the Charlotte area. Light rain today, temperatures in the upper 50s. This has nothing to do with what we are seeing over the next few days. So here's Thursday, 11 o'clock. Notice again, temperatures pretty mild. We're mostly in the 40s tomorrow with a few brief showers passing by. But notice that Friday night, briefly on Saturday, we're pretty clear before here comes the mess. So again, if you're able to do so, I'd say today or tomorrow, your best bet. So go ahead and get all of those things done by Saturday, again, 4 p.m. That's when my advice would be. I mean, I care about all the viewers here, but if you were my best friend, you know, my sister who has 2 young kids, she's a nurse, it would be 4 p.m. on Saturday, widespread all throughout the day, and then again, off and on through Sunday as well. We eventually will start to see clearing conditions Sunday night and into Monday morning, but again, we are still in the bullseye from Saturday night through most of the day on Sunday. Chris made this graphic earlier. I think it's fantastic to kind of explain. People have been asking a lot about salt and brine, and yes, they have coated the roadways. A lot of them already have. It's a great way to prevent against snow accumulation causing issues on the roads, maybe the first layer or two of freezing rain or sleet, but it's only moderately helpful when you start to get layers upon layers. So again, don't let the fact that you think, oh, well, no worries, DOT just salted the roads, I'm good. This is going to be a widespread impact for everybody. So again, that corridor right between I-40 and I-85, we're expecting the worst ice potential. You see the area shaded in purple. That's 0.5. That's where you get that 500 pounds on the power lines issue. Sleet and snow, again, we know it's all sleet mixed in with freezing rain here. Up toward the mountains, probably the only spot that you would see straight snow here in the metro. So highest accumulations, again, still expected in the mountains, but it's just not something that we necessarily deal with all the time here in the Charlotte area. I'll reiterate the fact that we want you to keep weather impact alert all Saturday, all Sunday, through Monday as well. Again, Monday, we might extend our weather alert into most of Monday, maybe even Tuesday morning, but a lot of that will have to do with what we are going to be working with after the system has mainly at least precipitated itself out, which happens on Sunday. We will be here, WCNC Plus, WCNC Charlotte, every single day on the hour, eventually continuous coverage, bringing you updates. So please stay safe. Again, try to be Saturday afternoon in your safe place that you could hunker down if you had to all weekend and could still survive with whatever you have at home, even if you were to lose power and all of those things. A lot more information, of course, to come here on our streaming platform and our WCNC Charlotte mobile app, WCNC Charlotte. So we're the team to trust. Make sure you are doing so. And please, again, remember not to get your forecast this weekend from a weather app.
Like I said earlier, the best weather team in the business. They are rarely wrong. You guys
Well, wrong is also perspective.
I'm just saying. Look,
If there's a 20% chance of rain that rains at Carlene's house and not at Nick's, it doesn't necessarily mean you're wrong, but Nick might think so.
If Brittany said it rained at my house, and it rained at my house. So
I did.
No, I'm joking. I'm messing with you,
about to
Brittany. I'm messing with you, Brittany. But no, I mean this sincerely. Like a great weather team. Make sure you stay tuned in here on WCNC Plus and during our evening newscast. Of course, I gotta mention it. 6:30, the live weather impact show here. You get some really good stuff on that show.
Get into the weeds of it.
Get in the weeds of it. Brad Panovich, Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, also Tim Buckley from WFMY, our content partners there in Greensboro. So yeah, we should be ready. We should be ready to go. Thanks for the forecast. Hopefully you at home are getting ready, as Brittany said. Let's take a quick break.
Yep.
Are we ready for a break? We'll be back here in 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Let's head back now to Minneapolis, where Vice President J.D. Vance is speaking there amid the unrest, the protests there between folks there in the community in Minneapolis and federal agents. Let's take a listen in.
These guys for a long time is this is primarily a law enforcement issue. This is the Attorney General, this is the local mayor, this is all of the organs of local and state law enforcement. That's who we focus on, but we've certainly been in communication with the governor and his offices as well. Yeah.
So local law enforcement obviously hasn't been really helping out with the agents who've been assaulted repeatedly. What's the plan if nothing changes there here locally and this operation has attracted thousands of agents? Are there any plans to go into any other cities from here?
Well, right now we're focused on Minneapolis because that's where we have the highest concentration of people who have violated our immigration laws, and that's also, frankly, where we see the most assault of our law enforcement officers. Our plan is very simple. If you assault a federal law enforcement officer, we're going to do everything that we can to put you in prison. It's very simple. And most of these protesters, as much as I may disagree with their politics, most of them have been peaceful, but a lot of them have not been peaceful. And if you go and storm a church, if you go and assault a federal law enforcement officer, we are going to try very hard. We're going to use every resource of the federal government to put you in prison. Respect people's rights. Respect people's rights to worship. Respect people's rights to do their job without being assaulted. If you follow that basic principle, the Trump administration is going to do everything that we can to protect your rights. But if you go after somebody, if you assault somebody, if you make a 9-year-old girl cry because you walked into her church and harassed her, we're going to go after you with every single tool that we have.
Your administration has said repeatedly this is about safety, about making Americans feel safer. So what do you say to people here in Minnesota who say it's the overwhelming presence of ICE officers and federal officers and their tactics that are making them feel less safe?
Well, one thing I would say is, first of all, we saw in 2025 the biggest one-year drop in murders in the history of the United States of America. Significant reductions in violent crime. The reason why we have less violent crime is really two reasons. Number one, because we're enforcing the immigration laws and getting very violent criminals out of our country. And number two, because we're enforcing our criminal laws and putting guys who assault and murder behind bars. This is part of a broad effort to make us safe. And the chaos that people are seeing, and I understand there is frustration of the chaos, I'd say that we're doing everything that we can to lower the temperature, and we would like federal and state and local officials to meet us halfway.
Are you saying that they're not perceiving it correctly? Are you saying that they're not seeing that it's the tactics or the presence of the officers that are...
Look, I'm sure that people are seeing a lot of things that would make any member of our national community feel very upset, but I also think that if you understand this in context, this is the inevitable consequence of a state and local government that have decided that they're not going to cooperate with immigration enforcement at all. In fact, they're going to aggressively not cooperate. So here's a basic illustration of this. If you are an ICE officer and you have to arrest a person who's committed assault and is also an illegal alien, but the state and local officials won't help you identify that person, many of the things that people in Minneapolis are seeing that give them pause, that frustrate them, that worry them, that make them feel like things are too chaotic, many of these things are coming from the fact that there's no cooperation with state and local law enforcement. And I guess what I would tell people, again, many of whom are justifiably concerned and worried about what they're seeing in their communities, is why are we not seeing it anywhere else? We're seeing this level of chaos only in Minneapolis. LA and Chicago, we had some problems there. Pretty much every jurisdiction where these guys are operating, you don't see the same level of chaos. You don't see the same level of violence. You don't see the problems that we're seeing in Minneapolis. Maybe the problem is unique to Minneapolis, and we believe that it is. And it's a lack of cooperation between state and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement. Sir.
ICE has been operating here for years with less pushback than we're seeing right now. And even the St. Paul police chief recently said, is there not a way to find common ground without scaring the hell out of people's community? Those are his words. And I just wonder, with this Operation Metro Surge, is any part of it meant to send a form of political message to the leaders here in Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota? And I know you talked about you've been in touch with the governor's offices and the mayor's offices, but why have you not been able to speak to them directly? Have they not been willing to do so?
Well, look, I have spoken to some of the people in Minnesota directly. I spoke to some of them today. I've spoke to others in the past. And again, our staff has been in very direct contact with pretty much every official with any influence or any power in Minneapolis. But no, we're not trying to send a political message. We're trying to enforce the law. And unfortunately, what has happened is that as we've enforced the law, there's been this weird reaction, again, unique to this city. This is not a common thing across the United States of America. There's been a very unique, very Minneapolis-specific reaction to our enforcement of federal immigration laws. What I'm trying to do here today is understand why that is. What is it about Minneapolis that has become so chaotic? What are the specific types of cooperation that we need? Look, I don't need Tim Walz or Jacob Frey or anybody else to come out and say that they agree with J.D. Vance or Donald Trump on immigration. I just don't need that. What I do need them to do is empower their local officials to help our local or help our federal officials out in a way where this can be a little bit less chaotic and it can be a little bit more targeted. Like if we're trying to find a sex offender, tell us where the guy lives. Simple things like that, simple changes in how they're approaching immigration enforcement would make this work a lot better. It would make Minneapolis' streets a lot safer, and it would make this whole thing a lot less traumatic for this community. I'll take one more question.
Mr. Vice President, you've said that it's time to turn down the temperature. Does that include changes to both ICE and CBP tactics that we've seen employed on the streets, including less than lethal tactics, pepper spray, pepper balls? Beyond that, what is the federal government's role in turning down the temperature? And the Minnesota Department of Corrections says that its own officers have been cooperating with ICE all along, handing over criminals once they serve their sentences to ICE officials. Can you concede that there is some cooperation with the state?
Yeah, look, if I was going to list the 5 agencies locally and statewide that I'm most worried about, I wouldn't put the Department of Corrections on that list. I think that while there are certain things we'd like to see more from them, they've hardly been the worst offenders. You agree with that, guys? That's a fair assessment. But I think you talk about tactics, and you talked about the response to things. Look, we don't want to employ tactics that... We don't employ the kind of tactics that are only necessary when violence is committed against officers. That is these guys' directive, and that's what we're going to try to do. And again, the President said this a couple of days ago, whenever you have a law enforcement operation, even if 99.99% of the guys do everything perfectly, you're going to have people that make mistakes. That is the nature of law enforcement. What I do think that we can do is working with state and local officials, we can make the worst moments of chaos much less common. And all they've got to do is meet us halfway. These guys want to communicate with them. They want to talk to the local business leaders. Many of these guys, many of the people standing behind me are members of the Minneapolis community. Many of the officials that I met today who work in federal immigration enforcement, this is their home. They love this place. These are their neighbors. They want this to work a lot more smoothly. I think that we can get there. We just got to work at it a little bit, and we need some cooperation from state and local officials. The last thing that I'll say is I just hope they get it. This is a beautiful city. I've only been here a few times. I love it. Even in this weather, I love Minneapolis. We could do a lot better. We could do a lot more with more cooperation. The Trump administration, the directive that I got from the President of the United States is meet these guys halfway. Work with them so that we can make these immigration enforcement operations successful without endangering our ICE officers, and so that we can turn down the chaos a little bit, at least. I think a lot, actually. But for us to do that, we need some help from the state and local officials. We will keep on working with them, and so long as they're willing to work with us, they will always find a partner in public safety and law enforcement in the Trump administration. Thank you all.
All right, folks, want to introduce myself. I'm Colin Mayfield. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break here on Impact News. We'll come back, have more news here for the rest of the hour before we send things over to WCNC Charlotte News at 4. See you in 2. All right, folks, welcome back. We're going to get to this right now. Former special counsel Jack Smith is warning of catastrophic threats to democracy. He's having testimony in Capitol Hill right now, and actually Mr. Raskin, the ranking member, is asking him some questions. Let's go to this live right now.
Fake collector scheme, pleads guilty to the offense in Georgia.
Without objection. Gentleman from Wisconsin, recognized.
I just have to clarify something I said.
Yep.
I've talked to Donald Trump over a period of time. Donald Trump is 100% certain he won that election. There is 0% chance that he believes he lost. And I say that based on private conversations, which just boom. So I want to clarify that.
Noted for the record. We appreciate that. This concludes today's hearing. We thank
Mr. Chairman, for me, I just have one final question for you. That it begins really just as a point of order.
Okay.
As you know,
point of order, or is it a point of order or a question?
It's a point of order leading to a question. If that's all right.
That's innovative.
Okay. So it's
I don't think that's in order, but because I'm such a nice guy,
well, I appreciate
I'm going to let you state
it's
whatever you're
straightforward and
stating.
it's good faith.
Okay,
Look,
in good faith.
Because of nothing you've done and nothing that I've done, Jack Smith has not been able to answer the vast majority of questions about what's in Volume 2 of his special counsel report relating to the stolen documents. Now, it's been said that the judicial order that Eileen Cannon imposed will be lifted in February. And so I guess my point of order is, do we intend to bring him back so he can answer questions about Volume 2 and about the stolen documents case?
We'll take it under advisement.
Okay. Well, then
we're just see what the court decides to do, frankly.
I got you. Well, then in that event, I've got the signatures of every member on our side who are writing to notify you of our intent to call him to testify in continuation of this hearing to answer all of the unanswered questions about the second half of his
That
work.
will certainly factor in tremendously when we make our decision.
Okay, because we have a right on the minority day to have a witness. We will exercise that right.
You're going to call him back again?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
So,
and
we'll see. Yeah, okay. I'm citing Rule 11, Clause 2J.
We look forward to seeing the letter, and we'll find out. We'll take it all under advisement, as we said. That concludes today's hearing. We thank the witness for appearing before the committee today. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. Without objection, the hearing is adjourned.
Awesome.
All right, folks, that was a quick one. We're going to go to a break, another 2-minute break. And, of course, I think we're waiting on a ice presser that might be happening in Minneapolis. I'm seeing that right now. We'll take a 2-minute break, though, set ourselves up, and come back. All right, folks, thanks for coming back here at inside our Impact Studio on WCNC Plus. We have Governor Jeff Landry from Louisiana right now talking about the winter weather. Yes, it is stretching all the way from New Mexico to the Carolinas, so they are preparing in Louisiana as well. Let's listen in right now to their preparations.
Cook a gumbo. I mean, look, the only person I wouldn't want to be is a chicken in the state right now, because I'm sure the grocery stores are selling out on chickens. We have plenty of chicken and sausage gumbo, but please, get in your homes, get warm, get safe, and stay there. Even after the event passes, the cold air is going to stay, which means that any ice accumulation will be on the roads. Ice on the road is not only dangerous, it is deadly. And if you get on the roads and if you get in an accident, you're endangering our first responders already. So please, again, I beg you, stay off the road. Find a nice book and some great meals. Enjoy the time with the family. Make sure that your vehicle is winter ready. Make sure there's plenty of glycol in your radiators, and that you can start it when the event is over. You should, if you want to check on road closures, you can do it via 511la.org or by just dialing 511. We've got some great apps. Don't forget to get a GamePlan.app as well for up-to-date information on Louisiana's emergency management efforts. You can find everything on there. You've heard it over the last 2 years. I've been up here. Get a Game Plan. It's a great app. It will give you good information on the updates you would need to keep yourself safe. We all know that Louisianans are resilient. We all know that we've been through this before. But again, an ice event is a very, very serious and different event than what we saw last year. Again, I would urge you, once the event starts, do not go outside. Do not get on the road. After the event passes, the days of cold air will continue to keep that ice on the road. So again, make sure you stay tuned with your local news outlets on the radio or to get a GamePlan.app to find out when those roads become safe again. I beg you, please take this serious. We want you to stay informed. We want you to stay prepared. And again, I can't say it enough. We want you, what do we want them to do, Piper? We want them to stay off the roads, right?
Yes, sir.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. At this time, I'd like to bring our state meteorologist, Jay Grimes, up, and so he can walk you through what the areas that are going to be impacted the most, and then kind of walk you through what each of those areas will experience. Jay.
Thank you, Governor, and thanks for those kind words. So obviously this is going to be a major event for North Louisiana. In fact, for our residents in the northern part of the state, they may remember the February 2021 winter event across that portion of Louisiana. This is going to be something of equivalence. And just to highlight some of the points that the governor was making, in that event, we had a handful of fatalities related to the weather. So it is imperative that you follow the guidance that you hear. You'll notice with the maps there that we're looking at the potential for icing across northern and central Louisiana. As the governor pointed out, we do have a little bit of good news here in the sense that the ice line, in terms of the weather guidance, has retreated a little bit northward. So right now it looks like folks near and along the I-10, I-12 corridor and maybe US 190 will avoid any significant icing concerns. So here's an example of the what we might call the most likely scenario, and you can see icing amounts that could be as much as ½ an inch or more along and near the I-20 corridor. Icing of that magnitude is clearly going to create some significant problems. By the way, I want to thank the National Weather Service office in Slidell for doing the heavy lifting here and preparing some of these slides for me. Now, worst case scenario would be to bring that significant icing as far south as Alexandria, but that's a real low-end probability. Were that to occur, there's a very low-end probability that some of that ice could sneak as far south as the I-10 corridor in southwest Louisiana. But I don't see that happening, especially since the guidance has been sort of steadily over the last 24 hours retreating that ice line. But it still says the northern half of the state will be impacted. Now, keep in mind, the cold stuff will be following the rain. So it falls as rainfall, but freezes on contact as the bitter Arctic air rolls into the state behind the rain showers on Friday. Saturday is going to be a statewide mess, whether it's freezing or not, when the rain begins to fall. The problem in North Louisiana is that ultimately some of that rain will turn to snow. So we could see an inch or more of snow on top of the ice. That's going to be a bit misleading for some people if they're unaware of the fact that we've got a layer of ice below that snowpack. That snowpack is also going to keep the ice in place even longer. Worst case scenario with snow, we could see a couple of inches of snow in the northern part of the state. Again, the probability of a few inches is low, but it is not zero. Snow is more than likely going to remain north of Alexandria, but it's going to complicate issues in the northern part of the state where we get the snow on top of the ice. Then we've got issues with freezing temperatures, where temperatures in the northern part of the state could drop as into and below freezing upwards of 70 or more consecutive hours. We're talking about 3 days in northern Louisiana where the temperature will be at or below freezing. So there's no chance of really melting any of that ice and snow that develops. And 3 days takes us into the early part of next week. The real issue here is largely dependent upon where that front is set up as we work our way through the weekend. If the front moves a little bit more quickly, then the ice line gets a little farther to the south. But I really do believe that the ice threat will be mainly from the central parishes northward. I think the southern parishes will dodge that. But the cold air is going to get to everybody. In North Louisiana, you see here, look at that. We're not only talking about 70-plus hours of freezing temperatures, but lows that could get down to near 10 degrees on multiple nights in the northern parishes. We're talking about wind chills that could get very close to zero. That's why the governor pointed out, stay indoors. Hunters, this is not the time to be going out because this is just going to be bitterly cold air, coldest of the winter more than likely. And notice even down into the teens across the central parishes, and while the southern parishes may not get quite that cold, we're still looking at hard freezes across most of the southern parishes as we get into Monday and Tuesday. So it's a triple whammy. Ice for the northern parishes, followed by snow, followed by that bitter cold Arctic air. This is why we encourage folks to stay indoors and to prepare for power outages that could last for several days. In that February 2021 event, some folks in North Louisiana were without power for almost 2 weeks. So that gives you a sense of what this could be like. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jay. As Jay mentioned, DOTD has really started preparing for an extreme event. We have initiated all pre-storm preparations, including the application of de-icing materials as well as pre-treating bridges. overpasses, and elevated roadways across the state's most impacted areas. DOTD crews have already begun working 24-hour shifts to conduct these efforts. As the governor mentioned, we have a significant inventory of supplies. As he mentioned, DOTD has stockpiled more than 10 million pounds of salt and 200,000 gallons of brine to pre-treat and de-ice bridges, the most on-hand inventory in the state's history. We also have capabilities statewide to make additional brine as needed. DOTD is also positioning all salt reserves to key staging areas throughout the state in order to efficiently supply its crews and staff in areas that are forecasted to get hit the hardest. DOTD will continue staging salt and brine for application along with equipment, resources, and will remain on standby for all emergency response needs. DOTD has expanded its efforts and engaged contract services to require additional emergency support as needed, and DOTD is currently renting additional equipment ahead of the storm in an effort to assist with these activities. DOTD crews will work hard to keep all state routes open. However, weather conditions may prohibit this. If these conditions do occur, particularly in North Louisiana, DOTD's primary objective will be maintaining our priority routes, which are comprised of state and federal highways and interstates. Other non-priority routes will be kept open as weather conditions permit, but they have a higher likelihood of closure due to dangerous weather conditions. The DOTD priority routes will be found on the MyDOT website. Please note, as Jay Grimes mentioned, even the priority routes could be closed at some point if we receive prolonged and extreme weather conditions. In addition to these operations, DOTD's Traffic Management Center is activating 24-hour shifts to staff the Emergency Operations Center, and DOTD's Motorist Assistance Patrol will also activate 24-hour shifts throughout the state's coverage areas. The department is staying in close contact with GOSEP and the National Weather Service about weather conditions and how they may impact the state's roads and bridges across the state. Drivers should avoid being on the roadway, as the governor mentioned, especially in hazardous conditions where...
All right, folks, we're going to take another 2-minute break. Of course, we'll come back right here on WCNC Plus with you. See you soon. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. We have congressional individuals speaking right now about the Affordable Care Act and subsidies going along with that. Let's go to this live right now happening on Capitol Hill.
Plan should be making people healthier, And so you don't want to have benefits because someone's diseased and they come in more often. You want them healthy and go out. So we got to set up the proper incentive. Our incentive systems are backward. Fee for service is set up to pay the number of services provided, not the outcomes, and the value to the patient. Premiums, out-of-pocket expenses have risen incredibly in businesses. As I mentioned, I was in business for 30 years, had my last company 1,000 employees, and I can tell you one thing, setting up the right pay plan, as I mentioned earlier, is really critical to that. But in doing a round table with about 30 of our smaller businesses in our community, I wanted to see where everybody were at on various issues, because I also, at the time, this is a while back, chaired the chamber. And I got to tell you, it was unbelievable in that room, out of 30 people, how many had little or no insurance because they couldn't afford it. One couple told me they were paying $3,000 a month. They own an Italian restaurant, $36,000 a year. How do those numbers work? So business, especially small business, we need to do more. It's just got too expensive. We must do better for the taxpayer, and the best way to bend the cost on the curve, in my mind, is affordability, is trying to get down where it's reasonable. But one of the things I've always talked to people about, you've got to be also, we got to encourage people in education, other things, to be the CEO of their own health care. It's really critical, because you can't, I always tell my friends or people, if they're open-minded, not everybody's open-minded, get a physical every year in January. Start the year off right and figure out where you're at, make some tweaks and adjustment, but we've got to get into prevention. I've heard a lot of different discussion, but to me, at the end of the day, it costs you, you hear people getting cancer in their 40s and 50s and 60s. A lot of that, again, is preventable. So with that, let me just ask Mr. Joyner, your thought. One of the things we were talking about is affordability. What's your thoughts on that? What were you suggesting? What can we do more to make everything more affordable?
So, Congressman, I have 100% aligned with the way you think about the healthcare challenges today. The health status of our population is not great. So the prevalence rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certainly the oncology cases that you mentioned, many of these are preventable. So we are very much focused
Someone I'll just mention quickly told me that 50% of people have their first heart attack, never see the next day. I walked out of that room and I thought to myself, this is a while back, I thought to myself, I want to be on that side of it, and that's what got me into the physical. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we have a prevention problem and wellness problem, but we also have an engagement problem. We have to get the population to engage in their health. So that's where you structure incentives. And you also use technology to help the member and or the patients access their health care.
How can you get your patients more engaged, or have you had luck doing that? Because that's really critical, get them to buy in. Not everybody will, but there will be some that might.
So we launched a new digital app over the last year, and we believe that it is one turnkey solution that allows them to now manage all their health in one spot.
Let me mention, I only got about 25 seconds. Let me mention also we're promoting the idea of real food. A lot of this food is highly processed. There's no nutritional value. We've got to do everything we can for our kids. Kids today, they're claiming the obesity or whatever is at 20%, where maybe used to be 3 or 4%. So we've got to do more in that space as well. So what's your thoughts on that?
I think it's the whole health. So I think it is food and nutrition. I think it's diet and exercise. I think it's.
But what are you doing about it with your patients?
So today we want to align with the provider. So we set up a structured relationship so that the providers share in the outcomes. This is part of what we were talking about in terms of value-based care. But ultimately, it's when everybody on the care team is working towards the same common outcome, which is improving the health status of the patients, helping them navigate and deal with the complexity of the healthcare system. And we've actually made a difference. The companies and the businesses that we run and operate, we've actually been able to lower costs and improve the overall quality of health care for those individuals.
Thank you. Appreciate it. My time's up.
Thank you, Mr. Doggett.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your testimony. Just as there's no miracle drug to cure every ailment, there is not a panacea to high health care costs. You're part of the challenge of addressing that, but hardly all of it, and how we end a system that costs Americans 2 to 4 times more than people in other developed countries for their health care, and yet we end up sicker with higher rates of obesity and chronic disease. I say you're only a part of the challenge because while there's much talk of fraud, fraudsters take advantage of an inefficient system and lax oversight by the Trump regime. More concerned with yelling fraud, as we have heard repeatedly here and on the floor of Congress, the regime and their enablers have been using fraud as an excuse for a cruel agenda of cutting access to health care for millions of Americans and blaming insurers. In blocking the affordability credits, Republicans pointed to a recent GAO study on fraud, ignoring the fact that the fraud which was reported was documented as committed by hundreds of insurance brokers, not a mother out there seeking care for her sick child. Yet it is the child that suffers when this GOP agenda of yelling fraud really means replacing Obamacare with nothing care. I renew the challenge that I have made here and in the Budget Committee that if these Republicans are the least bit interested in preventing fraud, look beyond these insurance executives. Instead, get in a witness from the administration, which you have feared to provide in public session, like Dr. Oz, who can explain perhaps why the Trump regime reinstated 850 insurance brokers that had been suspended for wrongdoing last fall by the Biden administration. Let's hear whether CMS has issued a single civil monetary penalty for fraud, whether they are holding insurance brokers accountable in any way. While Trump won't offer a penny of help to families struggling with marketplace premium hikes, he continues to pardon health care fraudsters and deny their victims restitution. It's essential that the Senate pass our Democratic bill to restore the tax credits, and the claim that he has some great health care plan is as phony as the dimensions of his plan over the last decade or so. This is simply a plan to shift money to insurers from one account to another. He claims he can give the money directly to the consumers. But a company like United, Mr. Helmsley, is not limited to Obamacare policies. You have high deductible plans that you sell with health savings accounts. You have certainly Medicare Advantage plans, as many of you have, which I understand is perhaps the most profitable sector. Taking the money out of affordable health care credits and shifting it there is not going to change the status necessarily of insurance companies, but it will certainly hurt consumers. And if you want a real example of waste and abuse, I think it is forcing Americans to pay for Medicare Advantage premiums for military veterans with the Veterans Administration actually providing the medical care. Yet the VA is prohibited by law from collecting a penny from any of your companies. That's a great business. An insurer collects the premiums, but the VA at taxpayer expense provides the care. Unfortunately, my bill to put a stop to this nonsense, like other anti-fraud bills I've filed in this committee, cannot even secure a hearing. Mr. Helmsley, on a more constructive note, I would ask you one very narrow question about a distinguished surgeon in my community of Austin. Dr. Elizabeth Potter and the Redbud Surgery Center are located there in Austin. She's been unable to obtain in-network status with United Health. She spends hours negotiating authorization to perform surgery at nearby hospitals, which lack the level of equipment and safety that she could provide at a fraction of the cost of the hospital. I know you have many responsibilities. I would simply ask you to commit to personally investigate this situation, give your folks the name and address, and engage in good faith negotiations and report back whether this matter can be resolved.
We will do that, Representative.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all of you. I would ask, Mr. Chairman, unanimous consent to put into the record my request to Dr. Oz to answer these questions about the fraudsters, which he's been unable to answer for months.
Without objection.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Certainly thank you to our witnesses for voluntarily appearing here today. I think we're having conversations that need to be had, and I hope that we can work together for constructive solutions, that we can share thoughtful ideas, that we can recognize that I think everyone on this dais wants our country to do better by the people as it relates to health care. I don't have to tell you, there are glaring problems that we face. Incidentally, Mr. Joyner, thank you for mentioning my bill, ECAPS, Ensuring Community Access to Pharmacy Services. I think that's one way that we could increase access, utilize the expertise of highly trained medical professionals more efficiently and effectively, and certainly as it would benefit the seniors and that access, both rural and urban. And I think of just the, various descriptions of the problem at hand here of high premiums. Now, I had someone describe the situation of the subsidy as we're shoveling government subsidies to paper over a problem. That's true. That it really, I think, conceals the problem at hand. I mean, I think back to before the ACA, the so-called Affordable Care Act, that we had the high-risk pool for those with pre-existing conditions, and now that seems like a bargain compared to what the individual market is having to pay. And there were signs, as all of the debate was happening in the run-up to the so-called ACA, there were warnings that we better be careful in what this is going to do to the individual markets, and here we are. Now, we've been learning a lot over the last couple of years, especially, but I'm concerned about just the abuses of the system, and perhaps whether someone might want to call it fraud, someone might want to call it unintentional enrollment. The results are the same. And, we know that there's a large number of folks who have recently been eligible for zero premium plans. And recent studies have shown that in 2024, nearly 12 million ACA enrollees, up to 35% of all enrollees in ACA, did not log any claims or use their plans at all during the plan year. Now, I would like to think that there is absolutely no need, although I think it's generally a good idea to at least get an annual physical. But I'm genuinely curious, Ms. Boudreau, do we assume that many folks, 35% of those who are enrolled, are just so healthy that they don't need to see a doctor at all?
Well, thank you for the question, Congressman. As we think about this overall, insurance is used for protection as well as use. So our numbers, I share your concern about potential fraud and catching that and making sure that we have integrity in the eligibility process. Our numbers show that it's roughly around 15% in total that we get our enrollment from the exchanges, both federal and state. The state exchanges we work directly with and do a bit better. But again, we share the issue of integrity, marketplace, integrity around ensuring that eligibility has people eligible for these are in those programs, as well as we think a stable program requires continuous coverage, requires us to be able to deliver preventative care. And so those are all really important pieces of keeping.
Right. Certainly the fundamental concepts of pooled risk are important, and I hope that we can have a good conversation about that too. Now, with all of these debates and various data points circling, I did come across some data here that Mr. Cordani, I'm turning to you to perhaps offer some background and explanation. Now, it seems apparent that in 2024, your company, obviously, as most did, took a rate increase. I think one state under your plan saw a 40% premium increase. Now, in the earnings call on January 30th, 2025, you said that in 2024, that you returned $8.6 billion to shareholders through dividends and share repurchase. That seems glaringly imbalanced in terms of what needs to be done for ratepayers, ultimately health care, and certainly shareholder priorities. How can you give us some background there? And because on the surface, it seems like shareholders receive great benefits, certainly at the considerable expense of patients.
Congressman, thank you for the question. 2 different points. One, I think your initial comment is relative to the exchange business in the year you identified. The year prior to that, we lost a significant amount of money in that specific state because we had an inordinate amount of growth.
Okay, so other states perhaps a lower increase, but certainly
Lower
still an
increases,
increase.
but meaningful increases. Point 2 is we've been in the Obamacare exchanges since its inception in 2014, and we've only been profitable in 2 out of those cumulative number of years. To your broader point, the ability to purchase back stock in that time frame was aided by divestitures of businesses. So we, over the last 5 years, we've divested several businesses, as well as successfully have been able to run our largely employer-sponsored business. So I would ask you to disconnect the purchase of stock heavily correlated toward divestitures and operating cash flow. We have not made money in the exchange business for quite some time. And in the United States, the vast majority of customers we serve are in the employer-sponsored market and in a self-funded way.
I understand that, and my time has expired, but I'm concerned about the employer-sponsored market, especially public sector, where expenses have gone up and coverage has gone down. Thank you. I'll yield back.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the witnesses for being here today. I think it's pretty clear that too many Americans can't afford the insurance they need to even see a doctor, and this has got to change. Last year, congressional Republicans cut $1 trillion from Medicaid, and they failed to extend the enhanced premium tax credits to make insurance more affordable.
We're going to take another 2-minute break. Guys, of course, we'll come back right after we get this. And if you've been out, preparations have already started. NCDOT crews are already out, brining roads, getting things prepared. You know it's serious when they have those overhead signs that are already flashing with "Be cautious." Preparations and operations are underway. So let's get to Governor Stein as there's a state of emergency ahead of this storm, which means all of these operations are kicked up in high gear. Let's go to this now.
Expecting winter weather to return to North Carolina this weekend. It will impact the majority of the state. In some parts of North Carolina, kids might experience their first real snow. And I can remember when my kids would look forward to the snow days, they'd watch TV and wait to see Wake County schools scroll at the bottom of the screen. And then we would go sledding over at Dorothea Dix Park. And I hope that some parents who are watching this can make special memories of their own with their kids. But winter storms are not just fun and games. For much of the state, folks will see ice instead of snow. And whether you find yourself facing ice or snow, we've all got to be prepared for whatever impacts may come. Yesterday, I declared a state of emergency across North Carolina to get ready for the storm. we've activated the State Emergency Response Team, which is a cross-agency group that includes the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, the North Carolina National Guard, the State Highway Patrol, and our state's utilities. Soon you're going to hear from North Carolina Emergency Management Director Will Ray about the winter storm and our emergency response operations, and then from Secretary Daniel Johnson about NCDOT's work to keep our roads as safe as possible. As Director Ray will outline, this winter storm will likely impact the majority of the state. At this time, our greatest concerns are potential power outages and road safety over the coming days. Ice accumulation may lead to power outages, and we recommend everyone keep their devices charged, have a flashlight and battery-operated radio on hand, and think about what you may need to stay warm and fed if you lose power. Precipitation and freezing temperatures may also make a mess of our roads, even with the 300,000 gallons of brine that NCDOT has already put down. Thawing and refreezing leads to black ice, so everyone needs to be careful on the roads for not only during the storm, but for a few days after the storm hits. Please avoid driving unless it is necessary to travel. This will keep you safe and the roads clear for first responders and anyone else who must be on the road. Some communities may open warming stations for those who need a safe refuge from the cold temperatures. You can find information on resources in your community by visiting your local government and emergency management agency's website and social media accounts. This morning, in addition to Director Ray and Secretary of Transportation Johnson, I'm also joined by Secretary of Public Safety Jeff Smythe, Major General Todd Hunt of the North Carolina National Guard, and the Commander of the State Highway Patrol, Colonel Freddie Johnson. Jackie Mativier and Mary Lee Bahar are our Spanish language interpreters, and our American Sign Language interpreters are Stephen Holland and Abby Quick. As we stand here now, emergency management officials, Department of Transportation crews, State Highway Patrol troopers, and the National Guard are hard at work preparing for the winter weather, brining the roads, pre-positioning resources, clearing abandoned cars from the shoulders of our highways, and working closely with local governments across the state to coordinate assistance quickly. High clearance vehicles are ready to support stranded drivers. The Forest Service is ready to remove downed trees from roads. Aviation assets, planes, helicopters are ready if needed. During winter weather, just like in any severe weather situation in our state, our number one priority is to keep people safe. So we recommend that you take the following actions to navigate this winter weather event. First of all, stay informed. Make sure you're following your local media, the National Weather Service, and your local emergency management agency. Second, get prepared. Think about what you would need during and after a major storm. Things like enough water, non-perishable food, medication, and supplies for 3 to 5 days for each person and pet in your household. Also, a flashlight, fresh batteries, a way to keep your phone charged, blankets, and winter clothing. Visit readync.gov for more detailed information about how you can best prepare. Next, make a plan. How will you safely heat your home if the power goes out? How will you cook safely if the power is out? And what will you eat if cooking is not an option? Where will you go if you cannot stay at home? Finally, let me repeat this. Starting Saturday, please do everything you can to stay off the roads. Unless you're a first responder or essential personnel, please don't drive unless you have to drive. Fortunately, we have 2 days to make sure that we have everything we need to ride out this storm. Don't wait until it's too late. And if as you're getting ready, don't forget to check on your loved ones and neighbors and anyone who might be especially vulnerable, including the elderly. None of us can control what this storm will ultimately look like, but each of us can get prepared. Be ready to stay home for a few days, potentially without power, and know that we are taking this storm seriously, and we will do everything we can to keep you safe. Thank you. I'll now invite forward and turn it over to Director Ray.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, everyone. I want to begin this morning with the forecast as we have it currently, and then provide an overview of our operational posture. As the Governor said, while there are still 2 days before this winter storm impacts North Carolina, confidence in the forecast continues to increase that this will be a significant event covering most of the state. Winter storm watches have been issued for most of the state, with impacts from this storm expected to last into early next week. The most impactful precipitation remains over the weekend, where a wintry mix is forecast across much of the state. Light precipitation is forecast to begin early on Saturday, spreading from west to east. The primary precipitation types include some snow, sleet, and accumulating freezing rain, with the best chances of any accumulating snow being in our northern counties. Our partners at the Weather Prediction Center have placed a probability of 60 to 90% for much of the state to experience moderate impacts. These impacts include hazardous driving conditions, especially on bridges and overpasses, damage to tree limbs from ice accumulation, and power outages that have the potential to be long-lasting. Portions of the state may experience major impacts, especially in the southwestern North Carolina, which can include considerable disruptions to daily life, with dangerous and often impassable driving conditions, as well as widespread power outages and damage to trees. As a reminder, ice accumulations of around a ½ inch of ice or more can cause an increase in downed trees or impact power lines and lead to an increase in power outages, as well as to hazardous travel conditions. Bitterly cold temperatures will move into much of the state Saturday and will last into Tuesday at this time. There are several important reminders if you lose power during this storm. Please ensure that generators are operated outside and away from open windows or doors to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. Never burn charcoal indoors or use a gas grill indoors. Properly vent kerosene heaters and make sure that all heaters have space around them to reduce fire risk. Use battery-powered sources of light instead of candles to, again, reduce fire risk. And make sure that you have plenty of warm blankets and clothing available. Based on the current forecast, hazardous travel conditions are expected Saturday and Sunday and may remain for several days due to the lingering low temperatures. As the Governor stressed, we would ask all North Carolinians to finalize preparations by Friday night and plan to stay off the roads this weekend. Unnecessary travel not only puts you at risk, but also the public safety personnel, power crews, and DOT workers who are working to respond to emergencies, to restore power, and to clear roadways quickly. If you must drive in winter conditions, our partners with the State Highway Patrol advise reducing speed significantly, increasing the following distance between you and other vehicles, and clearing all snow and ice from your vehicle before traveling. Given the forecast, let's make their work easier by staying off the roads unless absolutely necessary. The State Emergency Response Team has been activated here at the State Emergency Operations Center, as well as at our regional coordination centers in Kinston, Burlington, and Hickory. Key partners such as the Department of Transportation, the North Carolina National Guard, and the State Highway Patrol, as well as the Department of Health and Human Services, are working to address any resources or support that is requested by our local communities. We've also activated our warehouses in Burlington and in Baden and Stanley County. As of this morning, the State Emergency Response Team has provided water, meals, medical supplies, and heating equipment to local communities or partners who have requested that support. We're mobilizing elements of the North Carolina National Guard over the course of today and tomorrow to be able to assist with stranded motorists, assisting first responders with their emergency response, roadway clearance, and commodity distribution. Additionally, we are placing aviation assets from the North Carolina National Guard and the State Highway Patrol on standby for any rescue or movement of critical resources and personnel into impacted communities.